Chapter 529. The Tribulation Transcender from the Purple Flame Race escaped at sublight speed. With a distance of 1,000,000 kilometers, it would be difficult to catch up even with the flying boat. After the shattered starry sky stabilized again, he actually got away. Bo Hai steadied himself and cried out in pity. Jiang Ci shook his head and said, "It's really hard to catch him if he explodes his immortal power to escape." When an immortal Tao powerhouse explodes their immortal power and primordial spirit at the same time, it would produce even more power. Similarly, the damage to oneself would also be huge. As everyone knew, immortal power was difficult to accumulate, and primordial spirits were even more difficult to recover. That Tribulation Transcender from the Purple Flame Race had exploded at least 1/5 of his immortal power and primordial spirit. Without 1,000 years, he would definitely not be able to recover. Of course, if he spent a lot of resources, he could recover in advance. In any case, the other party would be distressed for a long time. However, Jiang Ci and the others did not care whether the enemy was distressed or not. Team 3619 only knew that they had lost a huge amount of military credits because a Tribulation Transcender from another race had escaped. Therefore, Bo Hai and Jiang Ci vented their anger on the remaining Tao integration stage experts of the Purple Flame Race. In just a moment, only the 6 members of Team 3619 were still alive in this part of the starry sky. They did not stay for too long. After cleaning up the battlefield and collecting their spoils of war, they quickly left this place. Inside the flying spirit boat, the 6 people raised their cups to celebrate. Bo Hai laughed and said, "To celebrate another big harvest. One more time, and my military credits will be enough to exchange for a low-grade immortal armor. I want to exchange for a mystic technique of the Tao of illusion. I want to exchange for the right to cultivate in the ancient Tao origin world." Then your goal is very ambitious. The few of them discussed what they wanted to exchange their military credits for, each with their own goals. Jiang Ci also casually mentioned his goal. If cultivators were considered rich second-generation heirs, then he was definitely one of the top rich second-generation heirs of the human race. The resources that Ling Long and the others needed could be easily obtained by him. However, for loose cultivators, the difficulty was very high. The difference between people was often determined from the very beginning. It was difficult for loose cultivators to obtain good cultivation resources. Therefore, many people would choose to enter the foreign battlefield to earn military credits and then exchange them for the resources they needed. This was a fair method. The only drawback was that it was easy to die. In addition, the items that could be exchanged at the military function were also very rich. There were Dharma treasures, cultivation methods, secret techniques, pills, and spirit herbs. According to the purchase price, 1,000 military merits were equivalent to 1 point. For example, a low-grade immortal armor would cost around 100,000 points, so it would require 100 million military points to exchange for it. An ordinary Tao integration cultivator would need to accumulate 100,000 points for thousands of years to accumulate this wealth. But in the extraterritorial battlefield, with a bit of strength and luck, one could settle it in a few hundred years or even 1,000 years. Team 3619, who had obtained a great victory, was overjoyed and did not notice that a strand of imperceptible violet immortal energy remained on the armor of their captain, Bo Hai. This strand of immortal energy was unusual. At the same time, a flying boat disguised as a meteorite was flying carefully. Inside the flying boat, the Purple Flame Race's first Tribulation Transcender, Camo, was covered in purple flames, showing his anger. Humans. Damned humans. This battle had completely wiped out the accumulation he had accumulated for nearly 10,000 years in the extraterritorial battlefield. His good brother who had accompanied him for 10,000 years was gone, his team was gone, and he had even lost 20% of his immortal energy. 20% of my immortal energy and primordial spirit will take thousands of years just to recover. This will affect my success rate in the next heavenly tribulation. If he had a 30% chance of surviving the second heavenly tribulation before, now he did not even have a 10% chance. Damned humans, you almost cut off my path to immortality. I will make you pay the price. Fortunately, I left a mark when I detonated my immortal energy. The violet flames on Camus' body flickered wildly. That mark was like the innate magical ability of the purple flame race. Only the purple flame race's immortal Tao powerhouses could use it once infected. Unless one's strength far exceeded his, they would not be able to discover it. Moreover, he would be able to sense it no matter how far away it was. I definitely won't be able to take revenge on my own. I can only contact other tribulation transcenders and find a few more. Camus suppressed his anger and calmed himself down. After pondering for a while, he had a target. I heard that Lord Sanos of the Ghost Race's Silver Yiksha race appeared in the Thousand LC 3000 years ago. I wonder if he left? I remember that before Celso became an immortal, he had followed Lord Sanos. I can go ask him. Celso was also a member of the Purple Flame race. The two were quite familiar with each other and had been active in the Thousand LC. With that in mind, Camus flipped his hand and took out a secret transmission array with an area of hundreds of square kilometers. A secret transmission array was similar to a communication pearl, but its effect and range were far inferior. Moreover, it was very inconvenient to use. The communication pearl was small, but the secret transmission array was very large. Seeing this, Camus thought of the despicable humans, and his anger rose again. The ghost race is a peak race, but their transmission methods are far inferior to the humans. The three peak races of the universe were the humans, the ghost race, and the devil race. Only the humans could transmit messages across the entire universe. This was thanks to the power of their supreme treasure, the heavenly eye. The ghost race and the devil race did not have such a method. They still relied on the primitive secret transmission array. As a vassal race of the ghost race, the purple flame race naturally used a secret transmission array. Every time they wanted to send a message, they had to set up a secret transmission array before they could send a message. Moreover, the range of the transmission was limited. If the distance was too far, the transmission would fail. Therefore, the humans only had one method of transmitting messages across the entire universe, and it was enough to crush all the other races. It was not surprising that the humans were able to become a peak race of the universe and occupy the 9 best starfields in the universe. On the other side of the Thousand LC, in the distant starry sky, inside a star fragment surrounded by war wreckage, Celso, a first tribulation transcender from the Purple Flame race, was temporarily resting here. Even immortals had to rest occasionally. With my current accumulation, it will be very difficult to transcend the next heavenly tribulation. This was Celso's problem. For those peerless geniuses who could transcend several tribulations in a row, they would rarely consider such a problem. Peerless geniuses considered how to reverse life and death and become a true monarch. However, peerless geniuses were in the minority. Most immortal Tao experts had to accumulate strength step by step before finally transcending the tribulation and becoming an immortal. After becoming an immortal, they had to consider the next heavenly tribulation. Next to him, Celso's Tao integration stage subordinate said in confusion, "Master, you can ask Lord Sanos for help. Lord Sanos is a genius of the ghost race's Silver Yiksha race. He cultivated with you before. As long as he can help you apply for the opportunity to enter the ghost race's holy land to cultivate, transcending the second heavenly tribulation shouldn't be a big problem." "What do you know?" Celso scolded, then said, "Lord Sanos also faces all kinds of competition in the ghost race. How can I ask him for help so easily?" The experience of cultivating with a noble Silver Yiksha for 100 years was something he was most proud of. Even though he was also an immortal Tao expert, he was still full of respect for that Silver Yiksha. "I'll wait for another 1,000 years. If I still don't have the confidence to transcend the second heavenly tribulation, then I'll ask Lord Sanos for help," Celso thought to himself. At this time, he discovered that his secret transmission array had received a message. "Cam. This arrogant guy is contacting me of his own accord?" Celso was a bit surprised. After accepting the message, a transmission phantom appeared in the secret transmission array that spanned over 100 square kilometers. "Hey, Cam, long time no see," Celso greeted with a smile. However, Cam said in a low voice, Celso, Seiko is dead. Seiko is dead? Celso's tone turned grave. The Purple Flame race wasn't a large race in the universe, but they had quite a few immortal Tao experts. Celso, Cam, and Seiko were all Purple Flame race experts who had grown up in the same era. Thus, they were the closest to each other in the Thousand Sea. How did he die? Celso asked in a low voice. A human team killed him, Cam replied. A human team? Cam, you're here to take revenge on them? That's right. Are you crazy? The two of you aren't a match for them even if you work together. Even if the two of us go, we'll only be sending ourselves to our deaths. Moreover, this is the extraterritorial battlefield, a war between the three peak races. It's perfectly normal for Seiko to die at the hands of humans. Are you going to help? Cam stared at Celso. The purple flames on Celso's head pulsed slightly. After pondering for a moment, he asked, how strong are they? 1 First Tribulation Transcender and 5 Tao Integration Realm experts. 2 of them are human Tao Integration Realm experts and have the combat power of a First Tribulation Transcender. They worked together to kill Seiko, Cam said. Human geniuses? Celso was surprised. Yes. One cultivates the Green Lotus Sword Tao, while the other cultivates the Tao of Illusions. 3 First Tribulation Transcenders. I'll say it again. There's no hope for the two of us working together. Celso shook his head. Don't worry. I won't take the initiative to throw my life away. I came to you because I want you to help me contact Lord Sanos of the Silver Yiksha race. I remember that Lord Sanos appeared in the Thousand Sea 3,000 years ago. He shouldn't have left yet, right? As long as we can get his help, exterminating this human squad will be a piece of cake. Cam said. Lord Sanos. Celso was a bit hesitant. He asked again, do you think Lord Sanos will take a liking to this human team? The Silver Yiksha race was one of the top bloodlines of the Ghost race. It was a true royal race. Although Sanos was a second Tribulation Ghost Immortal, his combat power was already at the level of a third Tribulation Transcender. He could definitely crush 3 First Tribulation Transcenders. As long as you help me contact them, I'll be able to convince Lord Sanos. Cam was full of confidence. Celso didn't continue asking. He also didn't ask if he could find the location of the human team. Since Cam had decided to take revenge, he must have used the innate skill of the Purple Flame race to leave an imprint on one of the humans. First, then change. Killing a Tao Integration Realm expert alone would give a minimum of 100,000 military merits and a maximum of 10 million military merits. Killing a Tribulation Transcender alone would give a minimum of 100 million military merits and a maximum of 1,000 trillion military merits. Although he had killed the Purple Flame Tribe's Tribulation Transcender together with Ling Long, the military merits he obtained were close to 100 million. Unfortunately, it was very difficult to encounter a Tribulation Transcender in the Thousand Sea. Sometimes, they might not even encounter one in a year. After all, this was a huge sea of stars with a maximum diameter of 100 light-years. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. Squad 3619 didn't encounter another Tribulation Transcender squad. On the other side, Camus and Celso of the Purple Flame Tribe arrived at the agreed place and successfully met up with Sanos of the Silver Yiksha race. The two boarded Sanos' flying boat and respectfully saluted. Lord Sanos. Sanos wasn't a lone wolf. He also led a team composed entirely of Tribulation Transcenders. Where's that human team now? Sanos asked. Camus replied, I've been sensing that mark. They are now about 0.3 light-years away from here. Sanos nodded and said, then let's go. Let's get close to them first and then predict their location to prepare an ambush. This was the standard method of ambush hunting. As a genius of the Ghost race's Silver Yiksha race, Sanos wasn't the kind of genius who only had talent for cultivation. He knew very well that he couldn't underestimate the enemy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to stand out in the fierce competition of the Ghost Race and become an immortal powerhouse step by step. The Ghost Race was different from the human race. The human race occupied the best territory in the universe and had extremely rich cultivation resources. On the other hand, the Ghost domain where the Ghost Race lived was far inferior. Especially after they lost the first ancestral land of the Ghost Race countless years ago, their competitiveness was even worse than that of the human race. Therefore, they could only form a non-alliance with the monster race and turn their guns to the human race. In addition to Sano's team, there were 3 other First Tribulation Transcenders of the Ghost Race. Now, with Camus and Celso, there were 6 First Tribulation Transcenders. They rode Sano's flying boat and flew at sublight speed, constantly approaching the 3619 team. 2 months later, the distance between them and the 3619 team was finally only 10 million kilometers. Sano stopped the flying boat and said, "This is the distance." Then, he said to Camus, "Predict their location. We'll find a place to ambush them." Camus didn't hesitate and quickly did as he was told. It didn't take long for him to come up with a prediction and describe a rough route. Sanos immediately made a decision and found a suitable hiding place along the route. Including him, there were a total of 6 Tribulation Transcenders. They scattered and hid in the starry sky within a radius of 100,000 kilometers. They believed that as long as they didn't expose their immortal energy and spiritual sense in advance, that First Tribulation Transcender of the human team wouldn't be able to discover them. At this time, the 3619 team was searching for their next target. Inside the Supreme-grade spirit boat, the team members weren't cultivating and were chatting. Helplessly said, "It's a pity that we haven't encountered a Tribulation Transcender team in the past 6 months. My military merits have increased too slowly. When will I be able to afford a low-grade immortal armor?" Duan said helplessly. Ling Long ruthlessly said, "I feel that you've been neglecting a problem. Even if you encounter one, you won't be a match for a Tribulation Transcender. What you're getting are the military merits of those Dao integration experts." Helplessly, Ling Long fell silent. "Ha!" Bo Hai and the others laughed. Jiang Ci chuckled at the side, but his eyes flashed. Ever since he entered the battlefield in the Outer Realm, he hadn't retracted his spiritual sense and had been monitoring the situation within a radius of 10 million kilometers. A second Tribulation Transcender of the Silver Yiksha race and 3 First Tribulation Transcenders of the Ghost race. There are also 2 First Tribulation Transcenders of the Purple Flame race. One of them is the one who escaped last time. They must be unwilling to accept their defeat last time and are now looking for helpers. But how did they catch up with us? Jiang Ci was very puzzled. The Thousand Jade Sea was so big that it was impossible to lock onto them with spiritual sense alone. Moreover, it had been more than half a year since they last fought. It was even more impossible for the other party to catch up with them. But now that the other party had caught up, it could only mean one thing. Spiritual sense imprint. Jiang Ci's eyes flashed. This was the only thing that wasn't limited by the distance. He used his spiritual sense to carefully check everyone's bodies. Soon, he discovered that there was a faint trace of purple immortal power left on Bo Hai's battle armor. If not for the fact that his spiritual sense was far stronger than that of a First Tribulation Transcender, it would have been difficult for him to discover it. What a good move! Riverward inwardly praised. At this time, he discovered that the 6 Tribulation Transcenders of the other races had spread out and were hiding 10 million kilometers away. Looking at their hiding position, it just so happens that it's on the sailing route determined by the captain. In that case, we'll definitely be surrounded by them. Jiang Ci pondered in his heart. It seems that I'll have to make a move this time. 6 Tribulation Transcenders. That second Tribulation Transcender of the Silver Yiksha race should have the strength of a third Tribulation Transcender, and his military merits should be even higher. I wonder how the other 5 are like. Hopefully, they'll all have 100 million military merits. Hopefully, I'll be able to gather 1 billion this time. Jiang Ci decided to make a move. If he could gather 1 billion military merits this time, he would be able to leave the team. In that case, it wouldn't hurt to expose some of his strength. Under the circumstances of flying at sublight speed, they could cross 10 million kilometers in 1 minute. The supreme-grade spirit vessel was constantly approaching the hiding position of Sanos and the others. A minute later, the spirit vessel passed by a group of meteorites. Boom! A big explosion occurred in the starry sky, and immortal power surged. Tens of thousands of marble were instantly turned into powder, and the spirit vessel was also shattered. Team 3619, which was inside the spirit vessel, also reacted at the same time. Bo-Hai spread out his immortal power at the fastest speed, covering everyone and resisting the attack. After the explosion subsided, the 6 of them didn't need to use their spiritual sense to see the current situation. They saw that the starry sky within a radius of 100,000 kilometers was firmly controlled by the 6 tribulation transcenders of the other races. Second tribulation transcender. Silver Yiksha race. 6 tribulation transcenders of the other races. It's over. Bo-Hai and the others had solemn expressions, and despair emerged in their hearts. Bo-Hai took a deep breath and said, "Everyone, we can only resign ourselves to fate this time." Then, he used his spiritual sense to send a sound transmission to Jiang Xi and the others. "In a while, listen to my orders and scatter. There are 6 of us. If we're lucky, maybe 1 or 2 of us can escape. Let's go all out. Even if we die, we have to kill another tribulation transcender of the other races." Ling Long also revealed a crazy expression. "Attack first, then change later." Chapter 531. In the starry sky with a radius of 100,000 kilometers, the immortal energy of the 6 tribulation transcenders of different races intertwined, trapping Squad 3619. 2 top geniuses of the human race, congratulations. You will become the cornerstone of my path to a higher realm. Sano's silver hair fluttered in the wind, and his golden pupils emitted light. However, the gloomy ghostly energy emitted from his blue skin made one's heart palpitate. Geniuses were the future of their races. Therefore, the 3 peak races had special rewards for killing geniuses of the enemy camp, and the rewards were extremely generous. In terms of military merit alone, killing a genius with the combat strength of a first tribulation transcender at the Dao integration stage would give more military merit than killing a third tribulation transcender. Not to mention the other rewards. Therefore, when Sanos heard the situation from Camus, he was immediately tempted. A blessing in disguise. Camus was not only happy that he was about to succeed in his revenge, but he was also looking forward to the benefits promised by Sanos. He believed that Sanos, who was from the royal family of the ghost race, would give him something that would definitely not be bad. It would definitely be able to make up for his losses in the previous battle. Moreover, he could also take this opportunity to befriend Sanos. Compared to them, the current situation for Squad 3619 could only be described as hopeless. Just a single second tribulation transcender from the Silver Yiksha race was enough to crush them. In addition, there were 5 first tribulation transcenders. It could be said that 1 or 2 of them were lucky enough to escape. In the opinion of Bo-Hai and the others, even if their squad had the combat strength of 3 first tribulation transcenders, they still had no hope in this situation. Brothers, from the moment you stepped into the battlefield in the outer realm, you must have been prepared to die. If you can't escape, even if you die, we can't let these damned outsiders have their way. Bo-Hai transmitted his voice to everyone. Kill to your heart's content. Kill! Ling Long and the others roared furiously. This scene made the 6 tribulation transcenders of other races laugh wildly. Sanos loudly said, "Kill them." Both sides attacked almost at the same time. The surging immortal energy of the tribulation transcenders of other races burst out, either carrying gloomy ghostly energy or purple flames as they surrounded Squad 3619. Bo-Hai, Ling Long, and the others also used all kinds of attacks, but their power was relatively weaker. Just as the 2 sides were about to clash, a terrifying aura suddenly spread out and covered the entire starry sky. Suddenly, the attacks from both sides slowed down. Bo-Hai, Ling Long, and the others turned their heads to look at the source of the terrifying aura. The 6 tribulation transcenders of other races also did the same, their gazes converging on a single point. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment, shock, and pleasant surprise. 6,000 green lotuses of swordsmanship appeared around Jiang Xi. His soaring sword intent caused the space to tremble, emitting a terrifying aura. Almost instantly, these green lotuses spiraled in a mysterious manner and merged into the Scarlet Heaven sword. Boom! Heaven and earth changed color. The aura of the Scarlet Heaven sword was like a giant scarlet dragon, stirring up heaven and earth. The pinnacle of sword arts, the cloud bookcase 7 swords. This is the mountain sea. Oh my god! This aura is even more terrifying than the silver yiksha. Bo Hai, Ling Long, Hong Xian, Duan, and Xiao Zhu were completely stupefied. The situation had taken a sharp turn. On the contrary, the expressions of Sannos, Cam, Celso, and the other tribulation transcenders of other races changed greatly, and they were even a little frightened. No! This is impossible. Strength far surpasses that of a 3rd tribulation transcender. How can it be just a human at the Tao integration stage? Retreat! Run! The tribulation transcenders of other races panicked. They had no intention of continuing to fight and were about to turn around and flee. At this time, Jiang Xi waved his sword. One sword. A huge sword light that spanned thousands of miles poured out. Whoosh! The sword light carried the power of the immortal Tao that far surpassed that of a 3rd tribulation transcender as it swept through the starry sky. It instantly caught up with Sanno's 3 first tribulation transcender subordinates, as well as the 2 first tribulation transcenders of the purple flame race, Cam and Celso. Ah, no! I can't die! Damned human! The 5 first tribulation transcenders roared as they joined forces to resist this sword. However, they discovered that when their immortal energy and Taoist techniques collided with the terrifying sword light, they were like ice melting, unable to resist at all. They were in despair, and some wanted to escape by detonating their immortal energy. However, the power and speed of this sword made it impossible for them to use this escape technique. The sword light swept across. Whether it was the immortal energy or primordial spirit of these 5 first tribulation transcenders, they were instantly reduced to nothingness. Instant kill. Then, the sword light that came from the first sword of the cloud bookish 7 swords only weakened slightly as it continued to attack Sannos, who was slightly faster. He's clearly at the Tao integration stage. Why? Why is he so powerful? 6,000 sword Tao green lotuses, could he be a peerless genius of the human sword sect? It must be. Sannos no longer had the confidence from before. At this time, he was extremely frightened. He knew that he was in danger today. I can't die here. Sanno's spiritual sense sent out a distress signal in the shortest time possible through the transmission secret formation in his storage magical treasure. I'm Sannos, and I'm currently being chased by a peerless genius of the human sword sect. The other party has already grasped 6,000 sword Tao green lotuses. The transmission range of his transmission secret formation could cover the entire 1,000 Isles Sea at most, which was 100 light-years. However, the transmission speed was far inferior to the heavenly eye of the human race. The communication pearl of the human race could almost achieve real-time transmission within the entire universe. As for the primitive transmission secret formation, even if it was within 100 light-years, it would take more than half a day to transmit a message. At this critical moment, he could not hold on for so long. Therefore, Sannos knew very well that he could only hope that there were tribulation transcender powerhouses of the ghost race or their camp within a radius of 10 billion kilometers. At this time, the sword light was about to hit him. Sannos had no choice but to stop. I'm a member of the royal family of the ghost race. I can't die here. His face was full of madness. Majestic immortal power mixed with gloomy ghost chi turned into a long ice dragon that directly collided with the sword light at the same time. He took out powerful immortal treasures one after another. Boom boom boom. The ice dragon and the immortal artifact magic treasure collided violently with the sword light. Countless rays of light flashed, and the space shattered, forming spatial turbulence. After everything calmed down and the sword light dissipated, Sannos was still alive. However, he had lost most of his immortal power and all his magical treasures. Huh. I blocked it. There's still a chance. Continue to stall. As long as I can hold on until my allies arrive, I can survive. Sanno's desire to survive reached its peak, and he fled again. In fact, many powerhouses of the Ghost Race camp had already received Sanno's message. Poor Sannos. Good luck. 6,000 green lotuses. A genius of the Sword Gate. Going there is simply courting death. He can't go there to die. A human DAO integration stage powerhouse with 6,000 green lotuses has already surpassed a third tribulation transcender. TSK. He's only at the DAO integration stage, yet he has such attainments in the way of the sword. He's definitely a peerless genius of the human race. There will definitely be a special reward for killing him. It's even comparable to killing a fourth or fifth tribulation transcender. Unfortunately, I don't have the life to take it. After receiving the message, most of the tribulation transcender powerhouses of the Ghost Race camp had the same reaction. This was courting death. No! As tribulation transcender powerhouses, they were still active in the Thousand Isles Sea. This could only mean one thing: their strength had not surpassed the third tribulation transcender level. Otherwise, they would have already gone elsewhere. However, there were still 4 foreign race squads that immediately rushed over after receiving the message. Hopefully, Sannos can hold on for a bit longer. Inside one of the flying ships, a skinny 4th tribulation transcender of the Ghost Race was controlling the flying ship with all his strength. This 4th tribulation transcender was one of the top powerhouses of the Ghost Race camp in the Thousand Isles Sea. With his strength, he could already leave the Thousand Isles Sea and go to more dangerous places to hunt foreign races. However, he was cautious by nature and would not easily take risks. Thus, he did not leave the Thousand Isles Sea. If I can kill this human genius, I might be able to use the special reward to advance my cultivation, the 4th tribulation transcender thought to himself. All of this happened in an instant. At the same time, Sannos used most of his immortal power and immortal treasures to resist the first sword of the Cloud Bookish 7 swords. He blocked it. Jiang Ci was somewhat surprised. However, he did not care. If one sword was not enough, he would use 2. Second sword. Jiang Ci waved his sword once again. The second sword of the Cloud Bookish 7 swords. Scarlet Heaven sword emitted a blazing light and whistled out once again. This time, the sword light was vast and mighty for 100,000 miles. Sannos was in despair. He only had less than half of his immortal power left, and his treasures were all used up. He simply did not have the strength to block this attack. It's over. The sword light swept through his immortal body, and the terrifying power annihilated his immortal power and primordial soul. Although this Silver Yiksha is a 2nd tribulation transcender, his actual combat strength is that of a 3rd tribulation transcender. It seems that the power of the second sword of the Cloud Bookish 7 swords is not bad. Jiang Ci watched as the enemy was reduced to ashes. This was the first time he had used the Cloud Bookish 7 swords against an enemy. This made him look forward to the power of the 3rd sword even more. The 3rd sword of the Cloud Bookish 7 swords was a move that had a qualitative change. As long as he mastered it, he would be invincible under the true monarch realm. Afterward, Jiang Ci's body flickered continuously in the starry sky like a phantom, and he put away the items left behind by the 6 tribulation transcenders into his storage treasure. Whoosh! After quickly doing all this, he flew toward Bo Hai, Ling Long, and the others. At this time, the 5 members of Team 3619 were still in shock. Mountain Sea. Ling Long was about to speak, but her eyes were full of shock. Jiang Ci chuckled and said, "If you have any questions, wait until we leave." That Silver Yiksha must have asked for help. Bo Hai reacted and quickly said, Yes, yes, let's leave quickly. Although everyone had a lot of questions, they could only endure for the time being. They quickly boarded the Supreme-grade spirit ship, shuttled through the starry sky, and left this place. Half a day later, the 4 Tribulation Transcender squads of the Ghost Camp arrived at this starry sky one after another. However, what was left for them was only ruins. Not long after, the news of Sano's death spread in the Ghost Camp of the Thousand Fish Sea. At the same time, the news of a peerless genius of the human race appearing in the Thousand Fish Sea also spread. First published, then changed. Chapter 532. Encrypted Intelligence, Peerless Genius of Unknown Identity, Human, Identity, to be confirmed 1. Sword Sects Ling Kong, 60% chance, 2. Purple Heaven Sects Jiang Ci, 30% chance, 3. Daoist Sects Daoist, 10% chance, rank, top 10 on the assassination list, tentative, whereabouts, currently active in the Qianyu Sea of the 9th battlefield after Sanos's death. This piece of information quickly appeared in the Ghost Camp of the foreign battlefield. The corresponding mission order was also spread among the Tribulation Transcender powerhouses of the Ghost Camp. Although this peerless genius of unknown identity was most likely Ling Kong of the Sword Sect, Jiang Ci attracted the most attention. Because Jiang Ci was the #1 target on the assassination list, the reward for killing him was the highest. In the Qianyu Sea, a top-grade spirit boat was shuttling through the starry sky. Inside the spirit boat, Bo Hai, Ling Long, and the others didn't feel any joy from winning the battle. They stared at Jiang Ci. They wanted to say something, but they didn't know where to start. They were full of questions just now, but now, they were blank. Jiang Ci sat there casually with a faint smile on his face as usual. In the end, Captain Bo Hai spoke first. "Shan Hai, I really didn't expect you to be so strong." Bo Hai shook his head repeatedly. After the silence was broken, everyone could no longer remain calm. "He's more than strong. He killed 5 First Tribulation Transcender and a Second Tribulation Transcender with 1 sword strike." No, although that Silver Yiksha was a Second Tribulation Transcender, his combat strength was at the level of a Third Tribulation Transcender. He's simply too abnormal. I think only the core disciples of the 3 gates and 6 sects have such strength. Yes, many of the Tao integration Buddhas of our Buddhist sects also have such strength. They have the combat strength of a Third Tribulation Transcender when they're at the Tao integration stage. Ling Long and the others discussed spiritedly. After opening their mouths, they began to express the shock in their hearts. In the face of this, Jiang Ci still smiled faintly. From these words, it seemed that everyone was just guessing his identity and didn't intend to pry into his privacy. Jiang Ci suddenly said, "Brothers." Everyone immediately stopped discussing. "Other than the 1 billion military contribution points mission, I actually have other goals for entering the battlefield," Jiang Ci said with a smile. "For someone of your strength, a mission of 1 billion is indeed too easy. I heard that the Tao Integration Core disciples of the 3 gates and 6 sects all have life and death training requirements. It seems like you have one too," said Bo Hai. Jiang Ci nodded, and said, "Well, after killing those 6 Tribulation Transcenders of foreign races, my military service points have exceeded 1 billion. His current military merit points had exceeded 2 billion. The 5 First Tribulation Transcenders had given him 800 million military merit points. The Silver Yiksha of the Ghost Race had 1 billion military merits. 1 billion. So you're free now?" Ling Long was startled. "Shan Hai, are you ready to leave?" "Leave?" Duan, Hong Xian, and Xiao Zhu also looked at Jiang Ci, not knowing what to say. "Yes, I'm leaving." Jiang Ci nodded calmly. Ling Long and the others had complicated expressions. They knew their limits. Previously, Shanghai's actions were restricted by the military's 1 billion military merits. But now, Shanghai was free. It was impossible for a powerhouse of his level to follow them around the Thousand Isles Sea. Bo Hai smiled, and said, "That's good. With your strength, you can enter the 9th battlefield and become a loner. If we continue to follow you, we will easily become your burden. Captain is right. Ling Long smiled straightforwardly. Then, she said seriously, Shanghai, you're a great genius. When you become a peak powerhouse in the future, don't forget about these old teammates who roamed the battlefield with you. Hong Xian, Duan, and Xiao Zhu also agreed. Jiang Xi laughed and said, "Ha, you have my communication mark. When we leave the battlefield in the future, we can meet up. Then it's settled. We have to leave this battlefield alive." Bo Hai said again. "Let's leave this place alive." Everyone nodded solemnly. Jiang Xi flipped his hand and took out several storage magic treasures. He said, "I got these from killing those tribulation transcenders from other races. There are many things inside that I can't use. You can take them." No, we didn't contribute in the battle just now." Ling Long was the first to refuse. "Yes, we can't take them." Hong Xian and the others also shook their heads. The wealth of 6 tribulation transcenders from other races was definitely comparable to their income from fighting in the battlefield for thousands of years. Bo Hai smiled, and said, "Everyone, take them. With Shanghai's strength, he can kill those tribulation transcenders with a wave of his hand. He doesn't care about these things." Ling Long and the others didn't refuse. Afterward, Jiang Xi chatted with these comrades of his for nearly 2 years for a while before deciding to leave. They were all people who had experienced life and death in the extraterritorial battlefield. When they parted, they didn't feel any reluctance. After saying goodbye, Jiang Xi flew away from Bo Hai's top-grade spirit ship. Then, under the watchful eyes of Bo Hai, Ling Long, and the others, he took out a top-grade spirit ship and turned into a stream of light, disappearing into the starry sky. There were indeed many things in the storage magic treasures of those 6 tribulation transcenders that he couldn't use. However, he kept some of the more valuable ones and a large number of flying ships. In particular, flying ships were very useful in the battlefield and could be said to be one of the most expensive consumables. After careful calculation, he now had a high-grade immortal ship. This high-grade immortal ship was not a spoil of war. It was given to him by his master, the Wine Sword Immortal, when he left the ancient Tao origin world. It was worth 100 million points, and its maximum speed could reach 100 times the speed of light. It was one of his life-saving trump cards. In addition to the high-grade immortal ship, he also had 3 middle-grade immortal ships, 14 low-grade immortal ships, and more than 60,000 top-grade spirit ships. However, in the starry sky full of star fragments and war wreckage, it was impossible to accelerate to the speed of light. There was no difference in speed between these flying ships. In any case, they were all at sublight speed. Therefore, top-grade spirit ships became the most commonly used flying ships for cultivators of various races. They had 2 advantages: cheap and good camouflage. Inside the cultivation cabin of the top-grade spirit ship, Jiang Xi used a wisp of his spiritual sense to control the spirit ship to fly. Then, he flipped his hand and took out his communication bead from his storage magic treasure. He made a hand seal and summoned a 3-dimensional image of the starry sky map of the 9th battlefield. The starry sky map was a necessary item for interstellar travel, especially in the complicated environment of the battlefield. Otherwise, one would get lost in the vast starry sky. However, in the human camp, only tribulation transcenders and the captains of the various teams were qualified to obtain a complete starry sky map of the battlefield. Jiang Xi, with his identity as Shanghai, could also apply for one if he returned to the 3rd Army camp. However, the process would be very troublesome, so he had to go back first. The starry sky map in his hand was given to him by Captain Bo Hai before he left. It saved him the time of going back and forth. Otherwise, it would take several years to go back and forth. Jiang Xi's gaze fell on the starry sky map. The 3-dimensional image in front of him was composed of countless large and small vortexes, light spots, and nebulae. It was the starry sky of the 9th battlefield, which had been shrunk countless times. The 9th battlefield is a starry sky with a diameter of 10 million light-years. The Thousand Isles Sea is only at the edge, and it's also the closest ancient battlefield ruins to the Third Army Camp. Although there are many alien races here, there aren't many true tribulation transcenders. Most of those in the Thousand Isles Sea are Tao integration stage teams. Only a few are led by First Tribulation transcenders. There are very few powerhouses above the Third Tribulation transcender level. Jiang Ci shook his head gently. He had encountered 6 alien tribulation transcenders at once, and one of them was even a second tribulation transcender of the Silver Yiksha race. The probability of such a thing happening was very small. It would be good if it happened once in 100 years. The Thousand Isles Sea is not a challenge for me. It's just that it will take a lot of time to search for alien tribulation transcenders. I have to go to a lively place with many powerhouses. Jiang Ci's gaze fell on the center of the starry sky map. It was a miniature continent surrounded by many nebulae, vortexes, and light spots. It looked small on the starry sky map, but according to the scale, this miniature continent was a starry sky continent with a diameter of 20,000 light-years. Surging Waves Island is the core area of the 9th battlefield. There are many powerhouses of various races fighting there. Those who can enter there are at least Third Tribulation transcenders. Even Third Tribulation transcenders have to form small teams. Otherwise, they will be easily hunted down. Those who have the confidence to survive in Surging Waves Island must be at least 5th Tribulation transcenders. If I don't rely on the Heavenly Tower and the Third Layer Mountain, my current comprehensive combat strength should be around 6th Tribulation transcenders. It will be very risky to enter Surging Waves Island rashly. However, there are many smaller starry sky islands around Surging Waves Island. Most of them are between 1,000,000 kilometers and 1,000,000,000,000 kilometers in diameter. I can move around on those small islands first. I will enter Surging Waves Island after I get used to its environment. Jiang Ci quickly made up his mind. With a move of his spiritual sense, he controlled the flying boat to travel through the starry sky according to the instructions on the starry sky map. The distance between Qianyu Sea and Surging Waves Island was more than 1,000,000 light-years. It would take him more than 1,000,000 years to fly at the speed of light. Therefore, he needed to accelerate to the speed of light in the starry sky and travel through the source space. If he only flew at sublight speed, he wouldn't be able to reach Surging Waves Island even if he died. 3 days later, Jiang Ci arrived at a spacious place. He put away the supreme-grade spirit boat and replaced it with the high-grade immortal boat. 100 times the speed of light. It will take me at most 3 years to travel through the source space. I can travel more than 1,000,000 light-years. The distance ratio between the source space and the original universe was 1,3600. 1 light-year in the source space was 3,600 light-years in the original universe. After entering the source space, Jiang Ci used a wisp of his spiritual sense to control the high-grade immortal boat and then entered a state of cultivation. Not only was he deducing Taoist techniques, but he also separated a part of his spiritual sense to continue learning the 360 sets of ordinary secret techniques that his master, the Wine Sword Immortal, had bought for him. After reaching the Tao integration stage, the next step was to create his own secret techniques. Before that, not only did he need to fight a lot, but he also needed to study a lot of secret techniques to build a solid foundation of knowledge. Of course, these secret techniques could be improved through the experience panel. The prerequisite was that Jiang Ci had to comprehend the basics of the secret techniques himself and let the panel record them. It would take a lot of time and experience to learn the basics of the 360 sets of ordinary secret techniques. His lifespan had already reached 10,000 years, so he didn't lack time. In addition, during the 1,000 years in the ancient Tao origin world, he had killed the spirits of the Tao outside Nine Heaven City. His experience points had broken through the 4 trillion mark. Therefore, he didn't lack experience points. What he needed to do now was to accumulate knowledge of secret techniques and accumulate battle experience. Through these, he could find inspiration to create his own secret techniques and create his own top-tier secret techniques, or even ultimate secret techniques. This way, he would have a greater chance of surviving the heavenly tribulation in the future. This was because cultivation and Taoist techniques were only the foundation of one's strength. Only secret techniques could allow a cultivator to unleash greater strength on top of their original foundation. Start first, then change later. Chapter 533. Sorry, the map in the previous chapter was wrong. It should be Taungu Continent, not Vast Waves Island. Cultivation was boring, especially when traveling through the source space. In the source space, there were only colorful streams of light and strange nebula-shaped energy bodies. There was no sound at all, only a dead silence. However, Jiang Ci had already cultivated in the ancient Dao origin world for 1,000 years, so he didn't feel anything. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye as he immersed himself in cultivation. According to the star chart, he was now close to Taungu Continent. In the center of the star chart of battlefield number 9, there was a miniature square surrounded by light spots, nebulas, and vortexes. It looked small, but it was actually a vast starry sky continent. Taungu Continent's largest diameter is 20,000 light-years, and the narrowest part is 1,000 light-years. In comparison, the diameter of the entire solar system is only 1 light-year. I don't know how such a huge starry sky continent was formed. It can only be attributed to the wonders of the universe. Jiang Ci sighed in his heart. With his current authority, he couldn't find the answer in the Eye of Omniscience network. Buzz! The desolate starry sky rippled as a high-grade immortal ship shuttled out. Jiang Ci quickly spread out his spiritual sense, and the situation within a radius of 10 million kilometers appeared in his mind. In fact, he didn't need to use his spiritual sense. He could already see the breathtaking scene with just his eyes. In the distant starry sky, there was a vast starry sky continent quietly floating there. Taungu Continent. According to the star chart, this place should be 1 light-year away from Taungu Continent. One could imagine how big Taungu Continent was if he could see it with his eyes at such a distance. Jiang Ci felt as if there was an inexplicable aura permeating the entire starry sky, bringing a kind of psychological pressure. It's just like when I faced Master 9 Firmaments, but it doesn't give me as much pressure as Master 9 Firmaments. This thought flashed in his mind, but he didn't think too much about it and focused his attention on the surroundings of Taungu Continent. There were many large and small starry sky continents floating in the starry sky. The big ones were 1 trillion kilometers long, and the small ones were 1 million kilometers long. They surrounded Taungu Continent like islands. It looks like these fragmented starry sky continents fell off from Taungu Continent. I'll find a fragment close to Taungu Continent and find an opponent there to train myself. Jiang Ci once again switched to the supreme-grade spirit vessel and carefully shuttled through the starry sky at sublight speed. With a distance of 1 light-year, Yang Kai estimated that it would take him a year to get close to Taungu Continent. Taungu Continent and the surrounding starry sky were unfamiliar environments to him, so he needed to be respectful. Therefore, his spiritual awareness was constantly spread out to investigate the situation within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers. Soon, the supreme-grade spirit boat approached the fragments that looked like islands in the starry sky. The outskirts were not Jiang Ci's destination. He did not stop and flew straight past them. During this period of time, he also encountered small groups of foreign races. Although their overall strength was 1 or 2 levels higher than the foreign races in the Thousand Jewels Sea, they were all easily dealt with by him. Up until now, he had never met a lone traveler like him. On this day, Jiang Ci once again passed by a fragment continent with a diameter of about 10 billion kilometers. His spiritual sense detected that a war between armies was taking place on the fragment below. The two sides were the human race and the monster race. The human race has an army of cultivators led by 3 tribulation transcenders, and the monster race is the same. It looks like the human race has the upper hand. Not bad. Jiang Ci did not plan to take action. Along the way, he had seen many battles between armies. He could not go and help every single one of them. He would only take action if the human race encountered a crisis that they could not resolve. Therefore, he directly left this place. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months passed. Jiang Ci drove the supreme-grade spirit vessel and shuttled through the starry sky. Suddenly, he received a message on his communication pearl. It's been a long time since someone sent me a message. Is it Daodu? Jiang Ci thought to himself. Ever since Old Man Bluestone took away Jiangdudu more than 3,000 years ago, the two had not contacted each other. It was not that he did not want to contact her, but that every time he tried to send a message to Jiangdudu, the message would always fail. And not only that, but he had also sent countless messages to Old Man Bluestone using the token. This unreliable big shot had never replied to him. Therefore, Jiang Ci often wondered if he had been deceived by this big shot. His spiritual sense swept through the communication pearl and checked the message. Jiang Ci's expression became slightly more dignified. The message was not sent by Jiangdudu. It was a distress message from the human camp. I am the commander of the 9845 Legion, Tuabe. Our legion is being attacked by a 3-tribulation transcender of the ghost race. Powerhouses of the human camp nearby, please come and help us. Thank you. The interstellar coordinates were attached at the end. The strength of a legion commander generally did not surpass that of a 3-tribulation transcender. In other words, the 9845 Legion was in a precarious situation. Jiang Ci quickly located the location on the star map. It was 80 million kilometers away from here. It was very likely that he was the closest powerhouse of the human camp. The supreme-grade spirit vessel changed direction and quickly shuttled toward the location of the distress message. 5 minutes later, Jiang Ci was only 10 million kilometers away from the location of the message. His spiritual awareness had also probed the situation there. On a small piece of land in the starry sky, the army of cultivators from the human clan and the ghost clan were fighting fiercely. The cultivation of both sides ranged from the nascent soul stage to the tribulation transcender stage, and there were 2 tribulation transcender powerhouses on both sides. However, the 2 tribulation transcender powerhouses of the human race were 1 and 2 tribulation transcender respectively. As for the ghost race, there were 2 and 3 tribulation transcender powerhouses. The disparity in strength between the 2 sides caused the human side to be at a disadvantage. Something's wrong. Jiang Ci's expression suddenly changed. Because when his spiritual sense swept through the cultivators of the 9845 Legion just now, he made an unexpected discovery. There were more than 100 cultivators of the Tao integration stage, more than 1,000 cultivators of the essence soul stage, and more than 30,000 cultivators of the nascent soul stage. Among the cultivators of the Tao integration stage, there was a figure that Jiang Ci was familiar with. It was a young-looking cultivator of the Tao integration stage. He was wearing a standard black battle armor and holding a blood-colored saber. Although his temperament and clothes had changed greatly, his appearance had not changed in the slightest. Old ancestor Qing Xian. Jiang Ci's eyes burst with killing intent. He had never forgotten this opponent. It could be said that since the first time he left Earth and stepped into the starry sky, old ancestor Qing Xian was the first opponent that gave him a real sense of crisis. And this sense of crisis had lasted until the Great Change on Earth. In the past, the Azure Star Region's cultivator force, the Azure Sect, had accidentally discovered Earth. Then, old ancestor Qing Xian sent powerhouses to occupy Earth. In the face of that kind of pressure, Jiang Ci had chosen to go to Murong Planet. He had almost died there, but his actual combat strength had reached the level of an invincible nascent soul stage cultivator. Only then did he kill the powerhouses sent by old ancestor Qing Xian and resolve the crisis on Earth. However, the sense of crisis brought by old ancestor Qing Xian had not disappeared. This was because when old ancestor Qing Xian was at the nascent soul stage, he could kill cultivators of the essence soul stage. At that time, he was definitely an unparalleled powerhouse. Later, when the 9 Regions Genius competition began, he became a core disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. Only then did he not fear old ancestor Qing Xian in terms of strength. At the same time, he had searched for traces of old ancestor Qing Xian through the power network of the Purple Heaven sect many times, but in the end, he had found nothing. It could be said that before Earth was discovered by the Tao sects and underwent great changes, Jiang Xi had always regarded old ancestor Qing Xian as a potential threat. In the 9 regions of the Tao alliance, apart from him, Jiang Daodu, Xian Tian and Li Baibai, only old ancestor Qing Xian knew the secret of Earth. After the Great Change, Jiang Xi's mentality changed from being worried about Earth being discovered to working hard to cultivate and try to change the future of Earth as soon as possible. The secret of Earth that old ancestor Qing Xian knew was no longer a threat, but Jiang Xi had not forgotten about this enemy. I can't believe that after 3,000 years, he has cultivated from the late stage and nascent soul stage to the early stage Tao reunion stage. Looks like the extraterrestrial battlefield is really a place to train people. Jiang Xi's eyes were cold. It seemed that he had made the right choice to come to help this time. The supreme-grade spirit boat quickly traveled through the universe. It would take at most a minute to reach the continent 10 million kilometers away. This old ancestor Qing Xian is really sinister. The human race had more than 100 Tao reunion stage cultivators, while the ghost race had fewer. However, most of them were at the late stage Tao reunion stage. Old ancestor Qing Xian was at the early stage Tao reunion stage, so his strength was definitely not as strong as those late stage Tao reunion stage ghost cultivators. However, Jiang Xi's spiritual consciousness discovered that old ancestor Qing Xian had actually asked the other human cultivators around him to block a large number of attacks for him. If this continues, his chances of survival are very high. A large number of the other Tao reunion, nascent soul, and nascent soul stage cultivators in the human race army will die. A minute later, Jiang Xi finally arrived in the sky above the continent. He put away the supreme-grade spirit boat and rushed down in a flash. This small starry sky continent was only a few million kilometers in diameter. The human and ghost cultivator armies were still fighting fiercely. The human race was obviously at a disadvantage. Big brother, the ghost race's attacks are too strong. The army is about to collapse. I will stay behind to block these ghosts. You guys get ready to escape. In the chaotic battle, old ancestor Qing Xian, who looked like a teenager, shouted anxiously. The 3 Tao reunion cultivators beside him were frantically fighting back against the ghost race. Hearing old ancestor Qing Xian's words, the middle-aged man in the lead shook his head. Qing Xian, you are at the early stage Tao reunion stage. How can you block these late stage Tao reunion stage ghosts? The 3 of us will stay behind and hold them back for a while. Big brother, second brother, third brother. Old ancestor Qing Xian looked anxious. The 3 of us are reaching the end of our lifespans. You are still young. There is no reason for you to stay behind and die. Don't worry, Qing Xian. If you can escape, our deaths will be worth it. You will live well for us. The 3 human Tao reunion cultivators all laughed freely and fearlessly as they faced the ghost Tao reunion stage cultivators who were besieging them. Old ancestor Qing Xian watched from behind. His face was full of pain and indignation, but he was indeed very pleased with himself. Indeed, it is the easiest to make such sworn brothers in the extraterritorial battlefield. Without them, I would not have lived to this day. Unfortunately, I have been with these 3 sworn brothers for more than 800 years. I really do have some feelings for them. Of course, this was in the eyes of the crocodile. In the past 3,000 years, he had been in similar situations more than 100 times. It would be strange if there were true feelings. Goodbye, brothers. Old ancestor Qing Xian watched as his 3 sworn brothers helped him block the ghost Tao reunion cultivators and prepared to escape. But at this time, a terrifying aura appeared in the sky above the battlefield. The attention of the 2 sides who were fighting fiercely was attracted. A figure wearing dark red armor and wielding a crimson longsword descended from the sky. Supreme-grade immortal artifact. The 2 human tribulation transcender powerhouses were pleasantly surprised. The 2 ghost tribulation transcenders who were fighting with them had grave expressions. Supreme-grade immortal artifacts were of the highest quality among immortal artifacts. Naturally, they were extremely rare. For example, although the price of a supreme-grade immortal artifact in the human race started from 1 billion points, it was basically priceless. Many 4th and 5th Tribulation Transcenders were still using high-grade immortal artifacts. Being able to use a supreme-grade immortal artifact already showed their strength. Second brother, we won this time. Tuabe, the commander of the 9845 Legion, laughed. We won for sure. The other human Tribulation Transcender also laughed. On the contrary, the 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders were already preparing to retreat. But in the next moment, when their spiritual senses swept over the figure emitting a terrifying aura, they were stunned. Dao reunion. How is this possible? How can he be at the Dao reunion? The hope that had just risen in the 2 human Tribulation Transcenders was replaced by despair. What was the use of a Dao reunion cultivator? The 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders laughed. Jiang Xi's figure flickered continuously, moving tens of thousands of kilometers each time. He did not choose to deal with old ancestor Qing Xian immediately. In the current situation, the most important thing was to solve the crisis of the human army. There would be plenty of opportunities to deal with old ancestor Qing Xian in the future. His gaze was locked on the 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders. One was a 3rd Tribulation Transcender and the other was a 2nd Tribulation Transcender. Although they looked similar to humans, their bodies exuded a strong gloomy ghost aura. Die! Jiang Xi ignored their gazes and waved his long sword. Whoosh, green lotuses appeared and merged into Scarlet Heaven's sword. Boom! Suddenly, the world changed color, and a crimson dragon stirred up the world. A sword light swept across hundreds of thousands of kilometers and rushed toward the 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders. The second sword of the cloud bookcase 7 swords. What? Impossible! Not only were the 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders shocked, but the 2 human Tribulation Transcenders were also in disbelief. The 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders immediately fled, but their speed was not as fast as Jiang Xi's sword light. After all, the power of this sword light had already surpassed that of a 3rd Tribulation Transcender. Join hands and block it. We must block it. The 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders shouted anxiously. The gloomy ghost aura, accompanied by immortal energy and the power of Daoist techniques, swept through the world like a tide, constantly colliding with the sword light. Boom! A big explosion occurred above the battlefield. However, their counterattacks did not have any effect. The sword light that seemed to penetrate the world passed through the bodies of the 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders with unstoppable force. Crash! The bodies of the 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders shattered, and the huge amount of immortal energy and primordial spirit were annihilated by Jiang Xi's sword light. Attack first, then change later. Chapter 534. One sword strike to kill the enemy. The 2nd Tribulation Transcender and 3rd Tribulation Transcender of the Ghost race, who had the upper hand just now, couldn't even block one sword strike and died on the spot. The speed of the battle shocked everyone. This small starry sky continent, which had been filled with the sounds of fighting just now, suddenly quieted down. Whether it was the human or ghost cultivators, they were all stunned. Run! Quickly run! Tens of thousands of ghost cultivators were the first to react. They didn't care that they were fighting with the human cultivators and crazily fled in all directions. But at this time, the 2 Tribulation Transcenders of the ghost race had already died. Where could the remaining ghost cultivators escape to? The human cultivators who had survived the disaster regrouped and quickly chased after the ghost cultivators who were fleeing. Jiang Xi didn't care about the battle that was about to end. His figure flickered, and he put away the storage magical treasures of the 2 Ghost Tribulation Transcenders. In the distance, the 2 human Tribulation Transcenders, the commander of the 9845 Legion, Tuabe, and his deputy, Fu Feng, flew in front of Jiang Xi. Brother, thank you. The burly man Tuabe cupped his hands and thanked him with a smile. Thank you. If it weren't for your help this time, our legion would have been finished. Fu Feng also smiled. His appearance was slightly ordinary and unremarkable. Jiang Xi smiled indifferently. As a fellow human, how could I not come when I received a request for help? Ha, you're right. Tuabe laughed, and then said, I'm the commander of the 9845 Legion, Tuabe. This is my second brother, Fu Feng. How should I address you? Just call me Mountain Sea. Jiang Xi nodded. Tuabe said, Brother Mountain Sea, the battle just now was very noisy. Let's quickly leave this place. Fu Feng smiled, and said, Come with us. I'll treat you to a drink. All right. Jiang Xi didn't refuse. He glanced at old ancestor Qing Xian, who was in the crowd below. Tuabe and Fu Feng looked at each other and smiled. Both of them were pleasantly surprised. They invited Jiang Xi with the intention of befriending him. He was only at the Dao integration stage, yet he already had such terrifying strength. When he became an immortal in the future, he would at least be able to transcend 6 tribulations in a row. Even becoming a 9th tribulation transcender wouldn't be a big problem if he didn't befriend such an existence now. There wouldn't be such a good opportunity in the future. Assemble. Tuabe's spiritual sense covered the entire battlefield. At the same time, he waved his hand and took out a starry sky arc that was thousands of miles long. Down below, the human cultivators had already finished cleaning up the battlefield. Big brother, second brother, third brother, we survived. Old ancestor Qing Xian excitedly reunited with his 3 sworn brothers. Yes, we have to thank that sword immortal. The middle-aged man sighed. He killed 2 ghost race tribulation transcenders with a single sword strike. His strength is 100 times greater than that of the Legion commander. There's no hope for us to reach this level of strength. Among us 4 brothers, only Qing Xian still has some hope. Patriarch Qing Xian also joked with everyone in a relaxed manner. His lifespan had just passed 5,000 years and he was considered a young Dao integration itinerant cultivator. He stared at the terrifying figure in the sky, full of yearning. If I accumulate more military merits and exchange them for more cultivation resources, I might have a chance to cultivate to immortal ascension. Only by becoming an immortal ascension can I not fear that Jiang Xi. Now that more than 3,000 years have passed, he might have reached the essence soul stage. Patriarch Qing Xian had always regarded Jiang Xi as his biggest threat and didn't dare to relax for a moment. It was just that ever since Jiang Xi became a core disciple of the Purple Heaven sect, he couldn't collect any information about Jiang Xi. After hearing the order to assemble, Patriarch Qing Xian and his 3 sworn brothers prepared to board the Starry Sky Arkansas. At this time, Patriarch Qing Xian subconsciously glanced at Jiang Xi. Their eyes met. Boom! Patriarch Qing Xian froze as if he was struck by lightning, and his heart was instantly filled with fear. That familiar gaze. Jiang Xi. Although the appearance was different, he couldn't be more familiar with that pair of eyes. More than 3,000 years ago, he had almost communicated with Jiang Xi face to face through transmission. Therefore, he still remembered Jiang Xi's gaze at that time. It was confident and unruly. It was unforgettable. Later, Jiang Xi became famous in the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, and the Skylink Mountain River diagram even broadcasted the scene of the tournament in real time. His impression of Jiang Xi, especially those eyes, became even more profound. In the next moment, Patriarch Qing Xian discovered that when that familiar gaze left him, it flashed with a trace of ridicule. This time, he was completely sure. It can't be wrong, it must be Jiang Xi. But, why is he here? How can he be so powerful? Patriarch Qing Xian panicked. He had already seen that sword just now. A sword immortal. Even those 2 powerful ghost tribulation transcenders couldn't block Jiang Xi's sword. He estimated that if Jiang Xi blew at him, he would be gone. Qing Xian, what are you doing? Quickly gather and leave. The middle-aged man next to him smiled and patted him. Oh. Patriarch Qing Xian recovered from his shock and quickly followed everyone to board the Starry Sky ship. The 10,000-mile-long starship was actually a mobile Starry Sky city. There were all kinds of living facilities inside. Patriarch Qing Xian was an early-stage Dao integration realm captain and could enjoy a luxurious manner alone. He declined the invitation of his 3 life-and-death brothers to celebrate and returned to his manor absent-mindedly. What should I do? What should I do? He was still panicking. In such a situation, it was difficult for anyone to calm down. It couldn't be helped because he had offended Jiang Xi too much. Ever since Jiang Xi became a core disciple of the Purple Heaven sect, he knew that there would be a day when he would have to face Jiang Xi. He had fought in the Outer Realm battlefield for so many years just to become stronger. When that day came, he would have no fear of Jiang Xi. However, today's scene made him completely despair. More than 3,000 years of pursuit had turned into bubbles and illusions at this moment. Calm down, calm down. Patriarch Qing Xian sat cross-legged and kept reminding himself. Finally, his mind became a little clearer. He evaporated the cold sweat all over his body and thought carefully in his heart. If I face Jiang Xi now, there is no chance of me surviving. He has such strength at the Dao integration realm. He is definitely one of the strongest geniuses of the human race. Maybe I can leak this information to the foreign races and borrow their hands to kill him. He shook his head again. No, this is a crime against the human race. If I am found out, I will die. Moreover, I don't have the communication method of the foreign races. If I leak this information to the foreign races in person, they will probably kill me as soon as they see me. Moreover, the words of a lowly person carry little weight. The foreign races probably won't believe the words of a Dao integration realm cultivator. Most importantly, if I leave the army now, Jiang Xi will have a chance to kill me. I won't have a chance to leak this information to the foreign races at all. Patriarch Qing Xian thought for a long time but still couldn't think of a way out. But he didn't want to die. Leave the army? Leave! Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind as he thought of a crucial point. According to the laws of the Dao Alliance Heavenly Court, human cultivators in the alien battlefield are forbidden from killing each other. If they are discovered, they will be sentenced to the death penalty. Moreover, they will be executed on the spot. On the battlefield, every human cultivator wears an identity badge. The identity badge is a special magic treasure. Not only can it reflect a cultivator's status, but it can also monitor the situation of the battle in real time and record military contributions. In other words, as long as I stay in the army and keep my identity badge activated, Jiang Xi won't be able to do anything to me. Even if another war breaks out, I will follow everyone closely. Everyone else's identity badges can help me monitor everything. If he tries to do something amidst the chaos, the identity badge will record it. The law is merciless. If a genius is sentenced to the death penalty, he will also die. Patriarch Qing Xian's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He believed that as a peerless genius of the human race, Jiang Xi wouldn't risk his life to kill an ordinary third-stage Dao integration stage cultivator like him. When a person was in a desperate situation, if he grasped onto a glimmer of hope, it would be like grasping onto a life-saving straw. He would hold on to it tightly and not let go. Then, he would fill in all kinds of seemingly reasonable deductions into this life-saving straw in order to increase his hope of survival. Patriarch Qing Xian was in such a situation. He grasped onto this life-saving straw and neglected some important factors. This was the extent of Jiang Xi's talent. It was far beyond his imagination. The heavenly court's the arch was even Jiang Xi's senior brother. At this moment, in a luxurious hall at the center of the giant galactic Arkansas, the commander of the 9845 Army, Tua Bei, and his deputy, Fu Feng, had prepared a sumptuous banquet to entertain Jiang Xi. Brother Shanhai, let us first toast you. This time, if you didn't arrive in time, at least one of us would have died. Tua Bei and Fu Feng raised their cups together. The two of you don't need to mention this anymore. I believe that if you received the distress signal, you would also help. Let's drink, drink. Jiang Xi also laughed freely. In the bottom of his heart, he was the one who had to thank Tuo Bei and Fu Feng. If not for the two of them sending out the distress signal, he wouldn't have met his old enemy, Patriarch Qing Xian. With his current strength, his overall combat strength was comparable to a sixth tribulation transcender. Seeking revenge on an early-stage Dao integration cultivator sounded a little narrow-minded and unforgiving. However, in Jiang Xi's opinion, this was simply bullshit. Even if he was a Dao monarch now, he would still kill his old enemy, Patriarch Qing Xian, if he met him. The kind of situation where he would forget about enmity with a smile would not happen to him. For example, his spiritual sense was currently monitoring Patriarch Qing Xian's every move. He was very scared just now, but now he has calmed down. It seems that he has realized that as long as he doesn't leave the Legion, I can't do anything to him. Jiang Xi was naturally clear about the rules of the extraterrestrial battlefield. The human camp was not allowed to kill each other, and those who violated this rule would be killed. With his status, unless it was a last resort, he was unwilling to violate the Heavenly Court's rules. Although he violated the rules, he wouldn't be sentenced to death. However, that would make things difficult for Master Nine Firmaments and his senior brother Monarch. Even if the two of them didn't care, Jiang Xi was also a person who cared about his face. I have 10,000 ways to kill you. Since he was temporarily staying in the 9845 Legion with Tuo Bei, he naturally had a way to kill Patriarch Qing Xian without worrying about violating the Heavenly Court's rules. Patriarch Qing Xian thought that staying in the Legion was a lifesaver, but he didn't know that for an immortal Dao expert, there were too many ways to kill an early-stage Dao integration cultivator. Jiang Xi collected his thoughts and asked with a smile, "By the way, Brother Tuo Bei, I just came to the Tonggu continent and am not very familiar with this place. I plan to gain experience in the fragments around the Tonggu continent first, but I don't know if there are any places I need to pay attention to." Brother Shanhai just came to the Tonggu continent. Tuo Bei and Fu Feng looked at each other in surprise. Jiang Xi nodded gently. "It seems that our luck is really good." Tuo Bei laughed. Then, he said, "If you ask me about the situation of the Tonggu continent, I definitely don't know. Because those who dare to go there are at least third tribulation transcenders. If you want to establish a foothold there, you need to have the strength of a fifth or sixth tribulation transcender." Fu Feng also said, "If we go there, I'm afraid we won't be able to survive for more than 100 years. Brother Shanhai chose to gain experience around the Tonggu continent first. I have to say that this is a very wise choice. As for the places you need to pay attention to, Tuo Bei muttered. Then, he said, "With Brother Shanhai's strength, I think you just need to remember not to enter the Surging Waves Island." The Surging Waves Island? Jiang Xi was puzzled. Tuo Bei said, "Yes, the Surging Waves Island is called the Tonggu continent. The Tonggu continent is suspended in the Sea of Stars, and the fragments are like islands." Jiang Xi was a little surprised. The small fragments were 1,000,000 kilometers in diameter, while the big ones were 1,000,000,000,000 kilometers in diameter. Yet, they were actually just islands. Tuo Bei continued, "The Surging Waves Island has a diameter of more than 800 billion kilometers, and its danger level is second only to that of the Tonggu continent. Although the number of powerhouses there can't be compared to that of the Tonggu continent, there are still a lot of powerful tribulation transcenders. I heard that if we don't count the humans, the Surging Waves Island has a total of 18 powerhouses above the fourth tribulation transcender realm. It's very dangerous. 18 powerhouses above the fourth tribulation transcender realm? I haven't fought a powerhouse above the fourth tribulation transcender realm since I came to the foreign battlefield." Jiang Xi was tempted. Tribulation transcenders had 9 tribulations, and every third tribulation was a big threshold. Although there was only one heavenly tribulation between a third tribulation transcender and a fourth tribulation transcender, the difference in strength wasn't small. "Brother Mountain Sea, I'm a bit older, so I'll give you a piece of advice. I think you should be more cautious. It's said that there are 6 tribulation transcenders on the Surging Waves Island. You can kill 2 tribulation transcenders of the ghost race with a single sword strike, but Tuabe didn't finish his words. His meaning was very obvious. You're strong, but not strong enough. Thank you for your reminder, Brother Tuabe. Jiang Xi sincerely thanked him. Tuabe's reminder came from the bottom of his heart, and he wasn't looking down on him. In Tuabe's opinion, he might be able to kill 3rd and 2nd tribulation transcenders of the ghost race with a single sword strike. However, if he were to face a powerhouse above the 4th tribulation transcender realm, it wouldn't be so easy. As for facing a 6th tribulation transcender, he might not even have a chance of surviving. Fu Feng smiled and said, Brother Mountain Sea, since you're not familiar with this place, why don't you follow our legion and adapt to the environment first? Tuabe also looked at Jiang Xi, full of expectations. Jiang Xi smiled and said, if that's the case, then I'll have to bother you. His main purpose of staying here was naturally to deal with old ancestor Qing Xian. Secondly, he really wanted to familiarize himself with the environment. As the saying went, one had to be in awe of an unfamiliar environment. The Tong ancient realm was a place he was going to explore for a long time. He had to ensure that he was familiar enough with the place and collected enough information before choosing to enter. Although he was eager to fight a large number of powerhouses of different races, that was under the premise that he didn't have to worry about his life. If he rashly entered, he would be courting death. Start first, then change later. Chapter 535. The interior of the 9845 Legion's starship was a huge starry sky city. From the outside, it looked like a starry sky fortress armed with all kinds of long-range magical treasures. This starship was specially refined for the Cultivator Legion and was suitable for long-term interstellar battles. Jiang Xi temporarily stayed in the 9845 Legion under the invitation of Tuabe and Fu Feng. With his strength, he naturally couldn't stay in those ordinary manners. Tuabe arranged a luxurious palace for him. Then, out of curiosity, he strolled around the starship. Although he could see the full appearance of this starship with a sweep of his spiritual sense, however, the feeling of personally observing with his feet and eyes was still different from the feeling of using his spiritual sense to investigate. The cultivators in the Legion all knew that this powerful Dao integration cultivator was their savior. When they saw Jiang Xi, they would also respectfully salute him. Of course, the scene of Jiang Xi strolling around was also noticed by Patriarch Qing Xian. It's already been a few days, but you're still in the Legion. It seems like you really want to kill me. Patriarch Qing Xian's eyes were cold. How can I let you do as you wish? As long as I stay in the Legion, you can't do anything to me. Otherwise, you'll be a traitor. Even if I die, a peerless genius like you will be buried with me. Patriarch Qing Xian was sure that Jiang Xi couldn't kill him. Little did he know that each and every one of his movements was clearly being probed by Jiangxi's spiritual sense. Jiang Xi just smiled indifferently. After strolling around, he returned to the palace where he was temporarily staying. Soon, a month passed. The 9845 Legion was wandering in the starry sky 1 light-year away, looking for a foreign legion. During this period, Jiang Xi would look for Tuabe and Fu Feng to continue learning about the situation of the islands around the sky-reaching continent, especially Surging Waves Island. As time passed, he became more and more familiar with the situation of Surging Waves Island. On this day, Jiang Xi was cultivating in the palace. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. The opportunity had come. Just now, his spiritual consciousness had discovered that an army of demon clan cultivators had appeared within the range of his spiritual consciousness, which was 10 million kilometers away. Looking at the route, if nothing unexpected happened, the 9845 Legion would definitely encounter the other party. It's just a 3rd tribulation transcender, so it won't be difficult. The situation of the demon race army was completely within Jiang Xi's grasp. Therefore, he had no intention of reminding Tuabe. Tuabe led the 9845 Legion and had fought in the alien battlefield for many years. Naturally, it was not difficult for him to deal with such an encounter. Furthermore, the strength of his spirit sense, which was equivalent to 100 times that of a late-stage Dao integration expert, was also one of Jiang Xi's trump cards. The stronger the spiritual sense, the wider the range of exploration. The range of a late-stage Dao integration stage cultivator's spirit sense was 100,000 kilometers. As for Jiang Xi, by relying on the peacock visualization method and the secret Dao seal technique, his spiritual sense had a range of 10 million kilometers, which had already surpassed that of many tribulation transcender powerhouses. This would allow him to anticipate the enemy's movements or be prepared in advance when danger arrived. Therefore, unless absolutely necessary, he would not reveal this trump card. Half a minute later, Jiang Xi received a telepathic message from Tuabe. Brothers of the mountains and seas, there's prey. Gather quickly. Jiang Xi got up and left the palace, flying towards the center of the starry sky ship. Afterward, his spiritual sense covered the starry sky ship, and his voice echoed in the minds of all the cultivators in the Legion. Prepare for battle. This time, it's the monster race's flowing gold flood dragon clan. The more than 30,000 cultivators of the 9845 Legion had already gathered. Old ancestor Qing Xian, as an early-stage Dao integration stage cultivator, was at the front of the Legion. On both sides were his 3 life-and-death brothers. Old ancestor Qing Xian smiled and said, "Big brother, it's the flowing gold flood dragon clan. It seems that our military merits will increase by a lot this time." Haha, you're right. When it comes to dealing with flowing gold flood dragons, us 4 brothers are very experienced. In the battle 500 years ago, we killed a lot of flowing gold flood dragons. This time, we'll kill them again and strive to earn resources for 4th brother to become an immortal. The 3 life-and-death brothers were mostly thinking for old ancestor Qing Xian. The 3 of them had lived for close to 10,000 years, and their blood relatives had long passed away. Therefore, these life-and-death brothers that they made on the battlefield became the closest people to them. Old ancestor Qing Xian looked touched, but he was very proud in his heart. As a person who would do anything to achieve his goals, it was completely impossible for him to give his true feelings to these life-and-death brothers of his. He glanced at Jiang Xi, who was in the sky, and sneered in his heart. "So what if you're talented and powerful? I'm in the Legion now, what can you do to me?" At this moment, a large gap opened in the starry sky ship's array barrier. Tuabe's loud voice sounded. "Begin the battle." More than 30,000 human cultivators were fully armed. They lined up in a formation and rushed into the starry sky with great momentum. Kill! 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 The battle cries shook the sky. Immortal power, spiritual power, Dao techniques, and other terrifying energies swept through the starry sky like waves. Old ancestor Qing Xian seemed to be in the front, but he was in a position where he could leave the Legion at any time. He saw that in the distant starry sky, there was a huge golden flood dragon circling in the starry sky. Its immortal body, which was close to 3,000 meters long, was covered with golden scales and emitted a terrifying immortal Dao aura. At this time, a figure wearing dark red armor rushed out of the 9845 Legion, accompanied by a soaring sword in tent, and went straight for the second tribulation transcender golden flood dragon. Although the 2 sides had not collided, the powerful auras had already started to make the space tremble. Roar! At the same time, tens of thousands of huge golden flood dragons attacked the 9845 Legion. Joint attack! The more than 100 Dao integration stage cultivators of the 9845 Legion roared in unison. Before the legions came into contact with each other, the joint attack of the Legion could unleash greater power. The golden flood dragons opposite them all opened their huge mouths and spewed out blazing golden energy light beams. Tens of thousands of light beams merged into one, like a small star with terrifying energy on the human side. More than 30,000 cultivators attacked together. All kinds of attacks gathered in the starry sky according to a special joint attack formation, and finally formed a huge immortal sword that pierced through heaven and earth. Boom! Boom! The joint attack of the 2 sides collided with a loud bang. The star and the huge sword suddenly exploded like a supernova, completely illuminating the dark starry sky. A terrifying energy storm swept across hundreds of thousands of kilometers. However, from the result of the collision, the 9845 Legion was at a disadvantage because the Golden Flood dragons had the advantage in numbers. However, they were not afraid because the two human tribulation transcenders, Tuabei and Fu Feng, were in front of the Legion, blocking a lot of the energy impact for the Legion. On the contrary, the formation of the Golden Flood Dragon Legion was scattered by the energy storm, and many of them were injured. Kill! It's time to accumulate military credits. The human cultivators all fell into a frenzy and fought with the Golden Flood Dragon Legion that was in disarray. Fourth brother, don't go too far. Follow behind the three of us. Fourth brother, you can just deal the finishing blow. Yeah, the finishing blow will give you more military credits. The three life and death brothers rushed in front of Patriarch Qing Xian and fought wildly. This scene made Patriarch Qing Xian secretly happy. Although he had already completed his mission and regained his freedom, he was still willing to stay in the Legion because he had these three life and death brothers. When the Legion was in a chaotic battle, someone would help him kill the foreign races. He did not have to spend much effort to obtain a lot of military credits. Kill! Patriarch Qing Xian also crazily attacked. The saber in his hand emitted a rich blood-colored saber light, bringing with it a boundless killing intent as it rushed toward the nearby Golden Flood dragon that was already seriously injured. This is the feeling. Patriarch Qing Xian was actually a battle-hungry person who liked to kill and kill. Otherwise, he would not have comprehended the very special path of blood and killing. This kind of relaxed battle allowed him to pay attention to the battle in the distance. In another empty starry sky, the huge second tribulation transcender Golden Flood dragon was fighting with Jiang Xi. The two sides were locked in a fierce battle. Thousands of green lotuses circled around Jiang Xi's body, condensing countless sword chi that continuously fell on the body of the second tribulation transcender Golden Flood dragon. Bang! 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 The sword light hit the golden scales, producing a huge muffled sound. The second tribulation transcender Golden Flood dragon relied on its huge immortal body that was close to 3,000 meters long and its golden scales with high defensive power to not fear Jiang Xi's countless sword chi. Strange, why didn't he use the same sword move as last time? Patriarch Qing Xian was somewhat puzzled. He clearly remembered that when Jiang Xi killed the two ghost race tribulation transcenders last time, he did not use this move. Instead, he used the green lotus to fuse with the sword, turning it into a sword light that was 100,000 kilometers long. Patriarch Qing Xian was only a loose cultivator, and he did not know about the green lotus sword path, let alone the cloud bookcase 7 swords. Therefore, he did not know Jiang Xi's intention. He no longer paid attention to Jiang Xi's battle, and continued to follow his three life and death brothers to kill the Golden Flood dragons. At this time, the 9845 Legion had completely gained the upper hand because Tuabei and Fu Feng, the two human tribulation transcenders, were sweeping in front. Even if the Golden Flood Dragon Legion had more monsters, it was of no use. Let's kill one more. Patriarch Qing Xian added another blow and gained a lot of military merits. He did not notice that in the distant starry sky, Jiang Xi had been adjusting the position of the thousands of green lotuses. At this time, the thousands of green lotuses once again erupted with countless sword lights. These sword lights were accompanied by soaring sword intent and hit the Golden Flood Dragon's body. After hitting the golden scales of the Golden Flood Dragon, one of the wisps of sword chi was bounced back. Whoosh! This wisp of sword chi cut through the void without any pattern and fell in the area where Patriarch Qing Xian was. Patriarch Qing Xian was directly penetrated by this wisp of sword chi, and his body disintegrated in an instant. When his primordial spirit dissipated, he finally understood why Jiang Xi did not use that move. Jiang Xi! I hate you! This was Patriarch Qing Xian's last thought. Boom, boom, boom. This wisp of sword chi exploded along with Patriarch Qing Xian, and many of the surrounding golden flood dragons were also blown to pieces. Fourth brother. Qing Xian. Ah! You wretched demons! The eyes of Patriarch Qing Xian's 3 life-and-death brothers instantly turned red. With hatred in their eyes, they fought the golden flood dragons even more crazily. These were the life-and-death brothers on the battlefield. The first thing they thought of was to take revenge for their brothers. They did not suspect Jiang Xi. In their opinion, it was normal to be killed by the shockwaves of a battle between Tribulation Transcender powerhouses. A wisp of sword light at the Tribulation Transcender level was enough to kill even a late-stage Dao integration cultivator. Therefore, they did not hate Jiang Xi. If they had to hate someone, they would hate these monsters. If not for the monsters, their fourth brother would not have been affected by the battle. Of course, all of this had been calculated by Jiang Xi. With the strength of his spiritual sense, it was very easy for him to calculate the trajectory of the sword light in advance. It was completely accidental that it hit the golden scales of the golden flood dragon and then bounced back, killing a human Dao integration cultivator by mistake. No matter who investigated this process, there would be no problems. After all, this was a chaotic battle, and many accidents could happen. In this way, Jiang Xi perfectly avoided the possibility of violating the laws of the Heavenly Court. Patriarch Qing Xian, a potential threat that had lingered in his heart for more than 3,000 years, finally died. Back then, I was like an ant in front of Patriarch Qing Xian. Now, the situation has been completely reversed. Before me, he has become an ant-like minor character. Without the slightest effort, I have silently killed him. Strength, everything still depends on strength. Attack first, then change later. Chapter 536. If you treated others like ants, sooner or later, someone would treat you like an ant as well. Jiang Xi had never felt that he was very strong. He still couldn't be considered a true powerhouse. Otherwise, that wisp of sword chi wouldn't have bounced back. The second Tribulation Transcender Realm Golden Flood Dragon easily blocked his countless sword chi by relying on its huge immortal body and golden scales with very high defense. Battle, upgrade. After dealing with old ancestor Qing Xian, who had been a potential threat to Earth, Jiang Xi felt as if a shackle had been unlocked. His soaring sword intent suddenly increased, and the sky changed color as it attacked the second Tribulation Transcender Golden Flood Dragon again. Puny human Dao integration stage cultivators, so what if you're a genius and have an outstanding sword Dao? Without the strength of a third Tribulation Transcender or above, you won't be able to break my defense, haha. The Flood Dragon laughed wildly in the common language of the Dao Alliance. Then, it used its huge immortal body to continuously suppress Jiang Xi's movement space. In the distance, Tuabei and Fu Feng were somewhat worried and confused. Why isn't he using the same move as last time? Of course, they could also tell that Jiang Xi was at a disadvantage at this time. If not for the fact that they were in the starry sky, Jiang Xi would have been forced into a desperate situation by the second Tribulation Transcender Golden Flood Dragon. It wasn't like this last time when he killed the 2 Tribulation Transcenders of the Ghost race. That terrifying sword strike was clearly some kind of secret technique. Could it be that this secret technique has some kind of restriction? Although the 2 immortals didn't practice any profound secret techniques, they had heard that some secret techniques couldn't be used again for a period of time after they were used. Fu Feng suggested, "Brother Tuabei, I'll stay here. You go and help Brother Shanhai." "Alright." Tuabei waved his hand and shot out a huge immortal power palm, killing more than 100 huge flood dragons. Then, he was about to leave and help. At this time, the situation in the distance changed greatly. A little golden snake dares to be so rampant in front of me? Jiang Xi coldly snorted, and his aura changed. The 6,000 green lotuses that were hovering around him suddenly merged into the Scarlet Heaven sword in a mysterious way. Boom. Heaven and earth changed color as a crimson dragon soared into the sky. Jiang Xi directly slashed out with his sword, and a sword light with boundless might swept out for 100,000 kilometers. The second sword of the cloud bookcase, 7 swords. Whoosh, the Milky Way shattered, and the countless corpses in the starry sky turned into nothingness. At this time, the second tribulation transcender, Golden Flood Dragon, also sensed the danger, and a chill appeared in its heart. This is impossible. How could a Tao integration stage human unleash such a powerful attack? He's definitely a top-rate prodigy of the human race. Damn it! How could I encounter such a heaven-defying genius? Roar! The flowing gold flood dragon let out a furious roar. Immortal energy surged from its entire body, and demonic chi filled the air. Then, immortal energy accompanied by his Tao technique condensed into a giant golden snake, which collided with Jiang Xi's cloud scroll sword light. Boom! Thunder rumbled. However, that was the extent of the commotion. Puff, the giant golden snake condensed from immortal energy and Tao technique was like a toy filled with gas. In the blink of an eye, it was pierced through by the cloud scroll sword light and dissipated into the starry sky, transforming into boundless immortal energy before returning to nothingness. Then, the cloud scroll sword light erupted with even more power, far surpassing that of a third tribulation transcender, and slashed toward the enemy. Roar! The second tribulation transcender, Golden Flood Dragon, became anxious, and his immortal body hurriedly dodged. However, his huge immortal body, which should have given him an advantage, was now slowing down his speed. Whoosh! The sword light whistled through the air and landed on the flowing gold flood dragon's huge immortal body. Those golden scales, which originally had high defensive capabilities, were directly shattered like pieces of paper. Splat! His huge immortal body, which was close to 3,000 meters in length, was snapped in half. Under the terrifying might of the cloud scroll sword light, half of his tail melted like snow and was reduced to nothingness. Human! You deserve to die! Despicable human, the flowing gold flood dragon roared furiously. That was half of his immortal energy, and it would probably take him tens of thousands of years to recover it. Of course, he had to survive first. Run, run, run. The flowing gold flood dragon chose to escape. The fear in his heart far surpassed his anger. You didn't die. Jiang Xi was somewhat surprised. His sword strike could directly kill a second tribulation transcender and a third tribulation transcender of the ghost race. But now, it had only cut off half of the immortal body of this second tribulation transcender. It seemed that this was the advantage of having a huge immortal body. However, how many sword strikes can you resist? Jiang Xi gently smiled. His figure flashed, and he chased after him with his sword. Whoosh, he slashed out again. Roar! The flowing gold flood dragon was really anxious now. He frantically tried to escape, but found that his speed was not as fast as the cloud scroll sword light. Moreover, even if he used his immortal energy to self-detonate to escape, it was too late. Judging from the power of the sword glow, it was likely that the terrifying sword glow would destroy his immortal force and primordial spirit as soon as he executed the art. Am I going to die here today? This was a definite answer. No, even if I die, I won't let a despicable human like you have your way. The flowing gold flood dragon roared, and half of its immortal body rushed toward Jiang Xi. He wanted to self-detonate for real. If he could self-detonate and take away a Tao integration stage human genius, it would not be a loss. However, before he could get close to Jiang Xi, he found that this idea was futile. That terrifying sword light had completely locked onto him. The flowing gold flood dragon despaired. Whoosh, the sword light that pierced through heaven and earth slashed down. The half of the second tribulation transcender's flowing gold flood dragon, together with the galaxy, turned into countless fragments and dissipated in the chaotic flow of space. The two armies that were fighting fiercely were shocked by this scene. The king is dead. Quickly run. With their leader dead, the flowing gold flood dragon army was in complete chaos, and they scattered in all directions. On the contrary, the cultivators of the 9845 army, which had already gained the upper hand, were pleasantly surprised. They quickly chased after them, not letting a single flowing gold flood dragon go. They were all military exploits. In fact, in this desolate starry sky battlefield, no matter who was at a disadvantage, it was impossible for them to escape. It was a one-sided massacre. Tua Bei and Fu Feng looked at each other. They were once again shocked by Jiang Xi's strength. Although it was not as strong as last time, it was still very shocking. At the same time, they were completely convinced by Jiang Xi's strength. The two flew forward, ignoring the flowing gold flood dragons below the immortal Dao realm. Those military exploits were naturally left to the cultivators under their command. Tua Bei smiled at Jiang Xi and said, "Brother Shanhai, I admire you for killing the enemy in 2 moves." Fu Feng also praised, the flowing gold flood dragon had such a huge amount of immortal energy. Even if Brother Tua Bei and I joined hands, we might not be able to kill it. Jiang Xi shook his head. It is indeed as you said. Tribulation Transcender monsters with large immortal bodies are very difficult to deal with. I originally thought that I could end the battle in 1 move. Tua Bei and Fu Feng were speechless. Comparisons were odious. He wanted to kill it in 1 move. That was a huge immortal body that was close to 3,000 meters tall. After a quick comparison, the average height of a human was about 2 meters. If there were no accidents, their immortal bodies were also around this height. For example, Tua Bei and Fu Feng belonged to the normal immortal bodies. 2 meters compared to 3,000 meters, this was the difference. Of course, the human race also had their advantages. Dao techniques, secret techniques, and other methods to increase their combat strength were stronger than the monster race. Riverward looked at the 9845 Legion that was chasing after their enemies and the flowing gold flood dragon legion that was struggling on the brink of death. A smile appeared on his face. The feeling of victory was very good. "Gentlemen, I'm preparing to leave," Riverward suddenly said. "Leave?" Tua Bei and Fu Feng were very surprised. They never expected that Jiang Xi would stay in the 9845 Legion forever. However, it was still too early. Jiang Xi had only stayed for a month so far. Yes, I was not familiar with the surrounding environment of the sky-reaching continent. However, with the help of the two of you, I have gathered a lot of information in this month. I feel that it is time for me to go out alone. Jiang Xi smiled. There was still something he did not say. Now that he had taken his revenge, there was not much point in staying. It seems that you already have a plan. In that case, we will not force you. Tua Bei said helplessly. Shanhai, no matter what, you must leave the extraterritorial battlefield alive. Fu Feng also said seriously. Many thanks. You two live well too. If there is a chance in the future, we will meet again in the human territory. Jiang Xi laughed. Then, he took out a top-grade spirit ship and left. Tua Bei and Fu Feng looked at the stream of light that disappeared into the starry sky with a complicated expression. They were already very satisfied to be able to stay with such a peerless genius for a month and even form a friendship with him. Encrypted information, unknown sword Dao peerless genius, human, characteristics, proficient in the green lotus sword Dao, 6,000 variations, identity, to be confirmed 1. Sword Sects Lin Kong, 50% probability, 2. Purple Heaven Sects Jiang Xi, 50% probability, rank, top 3 on the assassination list, tentative, whereabouts, near the 9th battlefield, Tonggu continent. This was a piece of information from the monster race. Before the flowing gold flood dragon died, it sent out a request for help. Not long after, the second tribulation transcender flowing gold flood dragon died, and this unknown peerless genius of the human race attracted the attention of the monster race. Different from the ghost race, this piece of information clearly stated that he was proficient in the green lotus sword Dao. With such an obvious characteristic, as long as the two sides met and fought, they would be able to confirm it. Moreover, this piece of information from the monster race increased the probability of Jiang Xi's identity to 50%. This was a very high probability. Therefore, the monster race experts in the extraterritorial battlefield also started to pay attention. Such a genius might not appear even once in hundreds of thousands of eras. Moreover, he came from the enemy camp and should be killed. Jiang Xi controlled the flying ship and flew through the desolate starry sky. The battle with the flowing gold flood dragon just now made him realize that he was still lacking a lot in terms of actual combat, especially when dealing with this kind of monster with a huge immortal body. If he went all out, he could easily deal with this second tribulation transcender flowing gold flood dragon. However, his next opponent would definitely not be just a second tribulation transcender. If he encountered another monster with a fourth tribulation transcender or above with a huge immortal body, it might not be so easy for him. I have to create my own combat secret technique as soon as possible. After so many battles, he gradually understood what Master Nine Firmaments had said. It was very difficult to display the power of other people's combat secret techniques. It was like he had the strength to score 100 points but could only score 80 points each time. Only by creating his own powerful secret technique would he be able to display his strength and score 100 points each time. Surging Waves Island. Inside the flying ship's control room, Jiang Xi's gaze fell on the starry sky map. The place he wanted to go was Surging Waves Island. For second tribulation transcender Tua Bei and first tribulation transcender Fu Feng, Surging Waves Island was a very dangerous place. However, in Jiang Xi's eyes, it was a very good place to temper himself. While driving the flying ship, he sorted out the information he had obtained from Tua Bei and Fu Feng. Surging Waves Island had a diameter of more than 800 billion kilometers. In terms of environment, Surging Waves Island was a small starry sky continent suitable for life. A long time ago, it was the habitat of an ordinary race in the universe. However, later on, the three pinnacle races established the ninth battlefield on the Tonggu continent, and the Surging Waves race disappeared in the vast river of time. Now, there were no ordinary life forms on Surging Waves Island. There were only cultivators from various races fighting each other. There were solo cultivators, Dao integration stage cultivators, and also cultivator legions. Among them, the solo cultivators stood at the top of Surging Waves Island. They were the overlords of Surging Waves Island, and each of them was at least a fourth tribulation transcender. Among these overlords, 9 were humans, 10 were monsters, and 8 were ghosts. Jiang Xi mainly paid attention to the 18 overlords of Surging Waves Island. Tu Lu, Ghost Race's 4th Tribulation Transcender, nicknamed Soul Seeker; Nua Lin, Monster Race's 4th Tribulation Transcender, one of the 18 overlords of Surging Waves Island, nicknamed Sea King. Luo Ju, Monster Race's 5th Tribulation Transcender. He only learned about 13 overlords from Tua Bei and Fu Feng. The remaining 5 were more mysterious, and there was no information about them. 13 is enough. I'll use them as training targets for the time being. In Jiang Xi's opinion, combat was the best teacher. Among the 360 ordinary mystic techniques that Master Wine Sword Immortal had given him, many of them were combat mystic techniques. Although he could use his experience points panel to upgrade these mystic techniques to perfection, that was only in theory. He still needed to practice them in actual combat. Combining theory with practice was the correct path to upgrade. Moreover, since I'm looking for inspiration to create my own mystic techniques, I can't just use the Cloud Bookcase 7 swords. I'll use these ordinary mystic techniques first. Through combat, I'll obtain the essence of these mystic techniques. Riverward quickly set a training plan for a period of time in the future. 3 months later, the Supreme-grade spirit vessel was getting closer and closer to the vast Tonggu continent. Previously, when Jiang Xi left the Qianyu Sea and arrived at the starry sky hundreds of millions of kilometers away from the Tonggu continent, he felt a strange aura. He could feel an indescribable aura. Right now, this aura was becoming stronger and stronger. It's different from spiritual energy, immortal energy, Taoist techniques, immortal Tao, and origin treasures. How strange! Jiang Xi stood on the deck of the flying vessel and looked at the boundless Tonggu continent. After another half a day, the flying vessel finally arrived at a small starry sky continent. It was the Surging Waves Island. Looking around, the vast land of the Surging Waves Island was covered with mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas, as well as other strange terrains. Jiang Xi's spiritual consciousness was constantly spread out, and everything within a radius of 10 million kilometers was within his grasp. He quickly chose a suitable place to land. It was a place where the mountains and the sea intersected. I'm using the name Mountain Sea. This terrain is just right for the Mountain Sea. Jiang Xi smiled. Perhaps this was his paradise. He could find inspiration to create his own mystic techniques here. After quietly landing, he found a cave in the mountain range with a decent environment. He waved his sword and carved some classical decorations. From today onwards, this will be my immortal cave. However, after finding a place to live, Jiang Xi didn't rest. Instead, he started his life and death training according to his plan. Next, he would go out to hunt every 10 days to half a month and look for foreign powerhouses to fight. Then, he would return to his immortal cave and summarize his insights from the battle. In the early stages of his training, he didn't directly look for foreign overlords at the 4th Tribulation Transcender level or above to fight. First, he looked for Dao integration stage teams or 1st Tribulation Transcender experts and tested 360 ordinary mystic techniques step by step. Moreover, he set a rule for himself. He wouldn't use the Cloud Bookish 7 swords or his various trump cards until the last moment. This led to him being easily defeated by many 1st Tribulation Transcender experts at the beginning. This was because most of the 1st Tribulation Transcenders of foreign races were either in groups of 2 or 3 or leading a foreign army. As a lone cultivator at the Dao integration stage, Jiang Xi found it very difficult to fight without using the Cloud Bookish 7 swords or his various trump cards. However, this was the purpose of his training. Without pressure, there would be no effect. In terms of overall combat strength, he was equivalent to a 6th Tribulation Transcender. However, if he only used the most basic cultivation and Daoist techniques, and didn't use the Cloud Bookish 7 swords, Daoist fusion techniques, or Daoist pattern techniques, his combat strength would only be equivalent to a 1st Tribulation Transcender. This was the training condition Jiang Xi had created for himself. Only by experiencing the pressure of battle would he have a greater chance of finding inspiration to create his own mystic techniques. Of course, he couldn't throw away his life-saving methods. With the strength of his spiritual sense and body, he could advance and retreat freely in these battles. Even if these opponents could defeat him, none of them could keep him here. As time passed, Jiang Xi became more and more proficient in using the 360 mystic techniques. His fame also began to spread on Surging Waves Island. He was a human Dao integration stage expert who was good at preserving his own life. He liked to fight with swords, and his threat level was above average. Dao integration stage teams below the immortal Dao integration stage were very afraid of encountering him. This was because they would be trampled and played with, and then inevitably die. As for the 1st Tribulation Transcenders of the immortal Dao realm, they also didn't want to encounter him because this guy was very difficult to deal with. Soon, Jiang Xi had a nickname among the outsiders on Surging Waves Island, the Undying Daoist. With a nickname, it meant that his strength had been recognized by the public. The 2 words, undying, reflected the strength he was currently displaying. Then, after only 20 years, the 1st Tribulation Transcenders of the outsiders discovered that the situation had begun to change. This undying and disgusting Undying Daoist had actually started to chase after them. Due to the lack of information, they only realized in the end that the strength of this Undying Daoist of the human race had increased by leaps and bounds. It had only been 20 years. At first, he was being chased by a 1st Tribulation Transcender, but now, he was chasing after a 1st Tribulation Transcender. In reality, Jiang Xi had already reached the Great Circle realm with the help of his experience points panel. What he needed to do now was to improve his combat application. This saved him the process of cultivation and comprehension, which was why his strength had increased so quickly. Of course, the 1st Tribulation Transcenders of the outsiders didn't know the reason. Their reaction to this was to start to group up. Originally, they were in groups of 2 or 3, but now, they were in groups of 7 or 8. Once they were alone, they would directly explode their immortal power and quickly escape without saying anything, not giving Jiang Xi a chance to fight at all. This situation greatly reduced the effect of Jiang Xi's training, and the military merits he could obtain were also greatly reduced. Those who can cultivate and become immortals are not fools. They know how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. My main purpose is to train, not to obtain military merits. Then, I will spare your lives for the time being. Jiang Xi adjusted the target of his training and began to look for the second tribulation transcenders of the outsiders on Surging Waves Island. Thus, the second tribulation transcenders began to experience the malice of the undying Taoist. The rhythm was still the same. At first, Jiang Xi often lost. Then, after another 30 years, the second tribulation transcenders of the outsiders began to suffer. Ah, you damned undying Taoist, get lost. I don't want to fight with you. His body is too strong. Even my middle-grade immortal treasure can't cut off his arm. Damn it, I hid so well. How did he find me? Gradually, everyone listed the undying Taoist as a terrifying existence second only to the 27 overlords of Surging Waves Island. The 27 overlords referred to the 9 fourth tribulation transcender powerhouses of the human race and above, as well as the 18 fourth tribulation transcender powerhouses of the outsiders. In this way, the effect of training second tribulation transcender on him was greatly reduced. Jiang Xi adjusted the target of his training to the third tribulation transcenders of the outsiders. This time, it was very difficult. With his current cultivation and realm, it was very difficult for him to fight against a third tribulation transcender with ordinary secret techniques. Of course, this kind of training was also the best. For the next 50 years, Jiang Xi often encountered all kinds of dangerous battles against the third tribulation transcenders of the outsiders. There were many times when he almost couldn't escape the encirclement of the other party. In particular, in a battle not long ago, his spiritual sense had already detected that 4 third tribulation transcenders of the outsiders had gathered to ambush him. However, in order to challenge his limits and test an ordinary combat secret technique that he had already mastered, he took the initiative to enter the encirclement. Then, it was a crazy battle, 1 against 4. With the strength of his body, which was 1,000 times that of a top-grade spirit treasure, he violently clashed with the 4 third tribulation transcenders of the outsiders. At the same time, he used 360 ordinary secret techniques to fight them. Of course, Jiang Xi was definitely at a disadvantage unless he used all kinds of trump cards. In the end, he fought to the limit and escaped the encirclement with his super strong body. Damn it, he got away. This undying Taoist is too difficult to kill. The 4 third tribulation transcenders of the outsiders roared unwillingly. However, Riverward had paid a huge price this time. His body had almost been destroyed, and dense, terrifying cracks had appeared on his body. However, in exchange for this battle, he gained a deeper understanding of the secret technique. After 100 years of tempering on Surging Waves Island, I finally gained something. Although Jiang Xi was seriously injured, he was very excited in his heart. After returning to the immortal cave, he immediately entered a state of meditation. As the saying goes, good preparation leads to good results. During the past 100 years on Surging Waves Island, he had experienced countless battles and only used the 360 ordinary secret techniques in each battle coupled with the extreme battle this time. He finally had a deeper understanding of the secret technique. Perhaps this was the beginning of finding inspiration to create his own secret technique. Chapter 537. Before this battle, Jiang Xi had only used the secret technique to fight. He had never thought about the essence of the secret technique. He began to ask himself what the secret technique was. According to his previous understanding, the so-called magical technique was a kind of magical technique. It was a means to increase the power of the magical technique. Now, he had a new understanding. The secret technique might be in existence on the same level as the magical technique, or it might be another form of the magical technique. It's not just a magical technique. As for which guess it was, Jiang Xi couldn't be sure for the time being. He thought that when he successfully created his own secret technique, he would know which answer it was. However, even if he couldn't be sure now, due to the change in his understanding of the secret technique, Jiang Xi also had a vague inspiration to create his own secret technique. Unlike before, when he was completely confused and only knew to explore through a lot of battles. Now that he had found a visible path, all he had to do was to follow it. In the next 10 years, Jiang Xi didn't go out to hunt the foreign races of Surging Waves Island. He had been cultivating in his cave, following that vague inspiration, constantly summarizing and advancing. During this period, his fame on Surging Waves Island became even greater than before. Because the battle between him and the four foreign races' three tribulation transcenders had caused a huge commotion, the powerhouses within a radius of hundreds of millions of kilometers had noticed that battle. To be able to survive and escape in such a situation, his strength had definitely reached the level of a fourth tribulation transcender. Although the foreign races didn't communicate well, 10 years was enough for the process and results of that battle to spread throughout Surging Waves Island. Therefore, in the eyes of many foreign races, the Undying Taoist became a powerful existence on par with the 27 overlords of Surging Waves Island, not just second to them. Of course, in the eyes of many foreign races, the Undying Taoist was even more threatening. This was because the Undying Taoist had risen too quickly. He was only at the Tao integration stage, but his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. In just 100 years, his strength had rushed to the level of a fourth tribulation transcender. Then, what about in another 100 years? 10 years was just a short moment for an immortal powerhouse. Jiang Xi now understood the meaning of time in the mountains. When he was cultivating in seclusion, 10 years would pass in a blink of an eye inside the cave abode in the mountain range. Jiang Xi suddenly opened his eyes, which emitted a strand of divine light. I finally caught it. He had grasped that strand of inspiration. I'm just one step away from the door. True knowledge comes from practice. I still have to find it in battle. Jiang Xi got up and left the cave residence. His figure kept flashing across the sky above the Surging Waves Island. At the same time, he spread out his soul sense to search for a suitable target. In terms of the strength of his spiritual sense, there was no tribulation transcender powerhouse on Surging Wave Island that could compare to him. Therefore, during this search, he took the initiative, and no one was able to discover him. Soon, he discovered with his spiritual sense that there were 5 second tribulation transcenders of foreign races cultivating in a cave. Too weak. It's not challenging at all. Jiang Xi shook his head. What he needed now was greater pressure to stimulate that sliver of inspiration and create his own secret technique. After traveling for another 90 million kilometers, he discovered with his spiritual sense that 2/3 tribulation transcenders were discussing something inside a starry sky ship of a foreign race. Still too weak. It's best if they are 4th tribulation transcenders or above. After a while, he encountered another team of tribulation transcenders of foreign races. 8 second tribulation transcenders of foreign races, that's really rare. However, they still aren't my cup of tea. Let's continue. Along the way, Jiang Xi discovered that there were many teams of tribulation transcenders of foreign races. However, he had yet to see a 4th tribulation transcender or above. He also knew that on this vast Surging Waves Island, apart from the powerhouses of the human race, there were only 18 foreign races that were 4th tribulation transcenders or above. In such a big place, it would be quite difficult to meet one of them. After traveling for another 3 billion kilometers, Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. 1/4 tribulation transcender, 2/3 tribulation transcenders, and 8 second tribulation transcenders. It seems that my luck is pretty good. I really met one. It's them. His spiritual sense discovered that there was an underwater palace 8 million kilometers ahead of him. The situation inside the palace was clearly explored by him with his spiritual awareness. There were 11 tribulation transcenders of foreign races gathered inside, and they seemed to be celebrating something for that fourth tribulation transcender. The fourth tribulation transcender in the lead had an immortal body that was more than 4,000 meters long. He had 2 fins on his back, and his whole body was covered with scales. He belonged to the monster race's Mad Shark clan. Noalin, fourth tribulation transcender of the monster race, one of the 18 overlords of Surging Waves Island, nicknamed the Sea King, a smile appeared on Jiang Xi's face, and his figure flickered as he crossed the void and approached the ocean. Lone travelers usually wouldn't team up with other tribulation transcenders. This time, he was able to meet a 4th tribulation transcender and 10 tribulation transcenders below the 4th tribulation. They were definitely the best targets for tempering himself. Half a day later, Jiang Xi arrived above the underwater palace. It was a purple ocean that exuded a different kind of beauty. At this time, in the underwater palace deep in the ocean, the 11 tribulation transcenders of the monster race were still drinking and celebrating. They obviously didn't notice Jiang Xi, but the topic of their discussion was Jiang Xi. One of the 3rd tribulation transcenders of the monster race said drunkenly, "That undying Taoist who appeared in the past 100 years is too arrogant and disgusting." A 2nd tribulation transcender shook his head and said, "I have to say, his strength is too fast." Yes, a brother of mine from the mixed moisture race just broke through to the 2nd tribulation transcender realm a few years ago. He could have crushed that undying Taoist, but he was later killed by him. We have to think of a way to deal with him. The 10 tribulation transcenders of the monster race also attacked at the same time. All kinds of Taoist techniques, accompanied by immortal power, condensed into powerful attacks that rushed out. Ha! Jiang Xi laughed and waved his sword. Sword intent pierced through the heavens and the earth, but he still used ordinary secret techniques. Sword formation, sword light, sword intent, sword form, whirlwind, water, flames, all kinds of secret techniques were continuously displayed by Scarlet Heaven's sword. As for himself, he relied on his body, which was 1,000 times stronger than a top-grade spirit treasure, to meet the attacks of those tribulation transcenders of other races. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion occurred, erupting with terrifying power that far exceeded that of a 5th tribulation transcender. If this was an ordinary planet with life, it might have already turned into cosmic dust. However, in this starry sky continent of the foreign battlefield, the energy impact of the battle didn't cause much damage to the starry sky continent. Only this purple sea, which had an area of tens of millions of square kilometers, was evaporated in an instant. The sky above the sea became a misty world. At the same time, Jiang Xi was injured. Even if his body was close to a low-grade immortal treasure, it had reached its limit at this time. Just like last time, cracks appeared on his body. He's injured, and his body is about to collapse. Quick, continue to attack, don't let him escape. Kill him. The 10 monster race tribulation transcenders didn't stop. They wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Jiang Xi. All kinds of immortal attacks whistled through the sky. This is pressure. Jiang Xi became more and more excited, and he didn't immediately escape like last time. Instead, he continued to follow the inspiration in his heart and used Scarlet Heaven's sword to display all kinds of secret techniques to resist those immortal attacks. Taoist undying, prepare to die. Norin, who had a huge immortal body, held a 100,000 feet long trident and pierced through the mist, directly stabbing towards Jiang Xi. Good. Jiang Xi laughed, but he remained calm in his excitement. He condensed an ordinary secret sword technique, and it collided with the terrifying trident. Boom! Jiang Xi was like a meteor, and he was sent flying 100,000 kilometers. More and more cracks appeared on his body, but it wasn't the limit yet. At this time, what followed was a series of immortal attacks in the form of monsters and artifacts from the 10 monster race tribulation transcenders. Boom, boom, boom. Jiang Xi was directly submerged by the immortal attacks, and dazzling light soared into the sky. He's going to die this time. The Taoist undying is dead in the end. Norin solemnly said, everyone, don't relax. Let's finish him off and turn him into ashes. Then, his immortal power condensed into a giant trident tens of thousands of kilometers long through the trident in his hand, and it shot towards Jiang Xi's position at a speed close to the speed of light. 100,000 kilometers would only take half a second. If Jiang Xi was hit by the all-out attack of a fourth tribulation transcender, he would be dead for sure. But at this time, a shadow flashed out from the dazzling light. Xiao! Sword light flickered, and like a gust of wind, it shuttled through the void and narrowly avoided the giant trident condensed from immortal power. What? What a fast speed! Nolan was shocked. This is impossible, it's already close to the speed of light. His sword technique changed. What kind of sword is that? So fast! The other 10 tribulation transcenders of the monster race were also shocked. 100,000 kilometers away, Jiang Xi's figure stood still. Although he was in a sorry state, with cracks all over his body and his armor completely shattered, his eyes were full of confidence. It's time to counterattack. Jiang Xi gently smiled. Whoosh, his figure flashed, and his sword was like a gust of wind, crossing 100,000 kilometers and instantly arriving in front of a 100-meter-tall third tribulation transcender of the monster race. Chi! With a slash, the supreme-grade Scarlet Heaven sword easily pierced through the defenses of the opponent's immortal body and went straight for his primordial soul. This, supreme grade. The 100-meter-tall third tribulation transcender of the monster race didn't even have time to be shocked before his primordial soul was destroyed. The immortal body that had lost its primordial soul began to disintegrate, turning into boundless immortal power. From the moment the sword was drawn to the moment the enemy was killed, all of this took less than 0.01 seconds. Jiang Xi didn't use the Cloud Bookcase 7 swords, nor did he have any trump cards. Yet, he was able to instantly kill a 100-meter-tall third tribulation transcender of the monster race. The only trump card he used was the supreme-grade immortal artifact Scarlet Heaven sword. Previously, in order to temper himself, he rarely used the full power of Scarlet Heaven sword. Now that he had finally created his own secret technique, there was no need to hide it anymore. Run! Quickly run! This scene frightened the remaining monster race tribulation transcenders. The remaining 10 monster race tribulation transcenders scattered and fled. This included the fourth tribulation transcender, Nolan, because even he couldn't instantly kill a third tribulation transcender. How is this possible? He wasn't that powerful a moment ago. Nolan was somewhat frightened. How long had it been? Not even a minute had passed. Although he had already created his own secret technique, Jiang Xi didn't intend to let them go. With his body as one with the sword and the wind as his speed, he instantly caught up with a second tribulation transcender of the monster race at a speed close to the speed of light. Slash! Without stopping for a moment, his figure flashed, and his sword was like a gust of wind. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The fastest of these monster race tribulation transcender was the fourth tribulation transcender Nolan, but he could only move 100,000 kilometers per second. Therefore, none of them were able to escape Jiang Xi's pursuit. In the blink of an eye, in less than 3 seconds, all the monster race tribulation transcenders except for Nolan died under Jiang Xi's sword. Their primordial spirits were destroyed, and their immortal bodies scattered. This land with a radius of 1 million kilometers became the place where tribulation transcenders fell. The rootless immortal power filled the starry sky. Just as it was about to return to the void, it was absorbed by Jiang Xi. Of course, it was actually absorbed by the heaven connecting tower. On the surface, it looked as if it had returned to the void. This meant that he had yet to truly create a systematic set of secret techniques. This sword is the embryonic form of my self-created secret technique. First launched, then modified. Chapter 538. Of course, a complete set of secret techniques would not only have this one move. For example, the Cloud Bookcase 7 swords were made up of 7 swords. Although Jiang Xi had only comprehended a move that combined the Sword Dao and the Wind Dao technique, he already had a general impression of the other moves after the secret technique. When the conditions are right, success will follow naturally. Once I reach the minor accomplishment stage of my self-created secret technique, I can officially enter Tonggu continent. Jiang Xi gazed at the vast expanse of the starry sky. He was full of confidence in this set of secret techniques that he had yet to fully create. If he could easily kill a 4th tribulation transcender at the initial stage, then what about those in the future? In comparison, the first sword of the Cloud Bookworm's 7 swords only had the strength of a 2nd tribulation transcender, while the second sword had the strength of a 4th tribulation transcender. From this point of view, the starting point of his self-created secret technique was much higher than the peak secret technique, Cloud Book 7 swords. Next, Jiang Xi began to deduce the follow-up moves in his mind, not letting go of any time to improve. At the same time, Xiang Rong, a 6th tribulation transcender of the monster race, was shuttling from the core of Vast Waves Island towards Jiang Xi's location. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. During this period, the Undying Taoist's fame and prestige reached its peak on Surging Waves Island. This was because the news of the battle half a month ago had spread throughout the entire Surging Waves Island. He had killed Sea King Norin, one of the 27 overlords of Blue Wave Island, as well as 2 3rd tribulation transcenders and 8 2nd tribulation transcenders of the monster race. Even a 5th tribulation transcender would find it difficult to accomplish such a feat. Among the 27 overlords of Surging Waves Island, there were only 3 5th tribulation transcenders. The Undying Taoist was only at the Tao integration stage, but he was able to do this. He was the most threatening existence on Surging Waves Island. For a moment, all the experts on Surging Waves Island, including the human clan, were guessing who the immortal Taoist was. The Undying Taoist's performance was already at the level of an epic's genius. Therefore, many experts thought of Jiang Xi. The 2 pieces of information that were suspected to be from Jiang Xi had spread throughout the 9th battlefield in the past 100 years. However, according to the information, Jiang Xi's characteristics were that he was good at the Green Lotus Sword Way and had 6,000 green lotuses. The Undying Taoist had never used such a technique before. However, everyone knew that the possibility of 2 geniuses of the same era appearing in the 9th battlefield at the same time was very, very small. As the saying goes, it is better to kill the wrong person than to let them go. After learning that such a prodigy had appeared on Surging Waves Island, many foreign race powerhouses of Tonggu continent began to rush to Surging Waves Island. There was no lack of 7th tribulation transcender powerhouses among them. Compared to a 6th tribulation transcender, the strength of a 7th tribulation transcender had taken a huge leap. The combat strength of a 6th tribulation transcender was equivalent to 10 5th tribulation transcenders. However, a 7th tribulation transcender was equivalent to 106 tribulation transcenders. It could be said that even in Tonggu continent, a master of this level stood at the top. A 7th tribulation transcender was enough to sweep through the entire Surging Wave Island. The only thing was that there was still some distance between Tonggu continent and Surging Waves Island. If they flew at sublight speed, it would take at least a year and a half to arrive. Several 4th tribulation transcenders and above on Surging Waves Island were also secretly anxious. They wanted to inform Jiang Xi, but they didn't have Jiang Xi's communication imprint. They couldn't find the Undying Taoist in the military system because it was only Jiang Xi's name. In the sky above the Purple Sea, Jiang Xi was quietly sitting cross-legged. After half a month of organizing and comprehending, he had a better understanding of the incomplete secret technique. Given some more time, he would be able to create the follow-up moves. On this day, Jiang Xi woke up from his secluded cultivation. His eyes burst out with a ray of divine light as his gaze fell in a certain direction. Tens of millions of kilometers away, a behemoth more than 6,000 meters tall was rushing towards him. Every time its figure flashed, it would cross nearly 200,000 kilometers. This was a flying speed second only to sublight speed. Xiang Rong. Jiang Xi stood up and unsheathed his sword. Sword intent rose and continued to accumulate. Sixth Tribulation Transcender. This was the most powerful opponent he had encountered since he started cultivating. Whether he could defeat it or not would depend on this battle. A minute later, the two sides were only 100,000 kilometers apart. Roar! Undying Taoist! Die! Xiang Rong roared, and the powerful sound waves spread millions of kilometers. The immortal power in his body surged, and the purple sea below also became his assistants. After all, he was an aquatic monster and was proficient in water-type Taoist techniques. The purple sea surged with monstrous waves thousands of kilometers high. Xiang Rong held a trident at the same time and attacked Jiang Xi together. He and Nolan used the same magical treasure. However, he used a high-grade immortal treasure while Nolan used a middle-grade immortal treasure. The high-grade immortal treasure trident was 100,000 feet long. With a mighty aura, it broke open a ravine between heaven and earth. With such terrifying power, even a sixth tribulation transcender wouldn't dare to face it head-on. However, Jiang Xi wasn't afraid at all. His aura had already accumulated to the limit. His figure flashed, and he took the initiative to meet the attack with his sword. The sword was like wind. It wasn't a breeze, but a gale, an immortal-level gale. He fused with the sword and instantly shuttled through the void, colliding with Xiang Rong's trident. A 3-foot sword against a 100,000 feet long trident. In terms of magical treasure quality, one was a supreme-grade immortal treasure, while the other was a high-grade immortal treasure. One was the embryonic form of a secret technique, the Gale Sword, while the other was the power of a sixth tribulation transcender. Boom boom boom. Apart from the land on Vast Waves Island that wasn't damaged, the starry sky within 100,000 kilometers suddenly exploded, forming a terrifying spatial turbulence. Whoosh! At the center of the explosion, a dark red figure was sent flying 200,000 kilometers. The dark red armor on his body shattered, and sinister cracks also appeared on his body. In this attack, Jiang Xi was completely at a disadvantage, and he was seriously injured. If it weren't for the fact that the strength of his body was close to that of a low-grade immortal treasure, he would have disintegrated. In addition, the supreme-grade immortal treasure Scarlet Heaven Sword had blocked a part of the attack for him. Otherwise, he would have died. Fuck. This is the power of a sixth tribulation transcender. Jiang Xi stabilized himself 200,000 kilometers away. He circulated his spiritual power and swallowed a few healing spirit pills to stabilize his injuries. To be able to survive my attack, you are indeed a prodigy of the human race. It seems that you are most likely that Jiang Xi. If that's the case, you should die. Xiang Rong's words were transmitted through her spiritual sense, and they carried a chilling intent. At this moment, she felt that victory was already in her grasp. The human Dao integration stage cultivator in front of her was seriously injured, and there was no longer any possibility of him resisting or escaping. Whatever you say, it's what it is. Riverward smiled faintly. Xiang Rong was a little confused after hearing this. Was he really Jiang Xi? Humph. Who cares if he is or not? He killed my grandson, so he must die. Once he dies, I will know his identity. Xiang Rong didn't think too much. She gathered her immortal power again, and a water-type Dao technique descended. Kill! Xiang Rong roared. The sound waves roared. His huge immortal body also tore through space and crushed towards riverward. She believed that Jiang Xi would definitely die under this attack. Ha, good timing. Jiang Xi laughed loudly. At the same time, he instantly executed his Dao fusion technique. The 7 Dao fusion techniques increased the amplitude of his spiritual power by 7 times. From 20,000 times, it increased to 140,000 times. This wasn't as simple as just multiplying the power by 7 times. The difference between 20,000 times and 140,000 times was enough to cause Jiang Xi's Tao integration stage spiritual power to undergo a qualitative change. Whoosh, Jiang Xi's body swayed, and the Sword of Gusts was unleashed once again. An extremely strange aura suddenly spread to a radius of 1 million kilometers. This. Xiang Rong was shocked. He didn't understand what was happening, but he had a bad feeling about this. I don't believe that a seriously injured human Tao integration stage cultivator can overturn the heavens. Xiang Rong was determined. His huge immortal body, which was 6,000 meters tall, surged with immortal power. Soon, his immortal body shrunk by 10%. This was his 1,000 years of accumulation, but he couldn't care less now that he had to face his enemy. This bad feeling was something that he had rarely encountered since he became an immortal. Every time, it was at the most critical moment. Whoosh, as his immortal body shrunk by 10%, more immortal power surged out. The trident in his hand also shrunk by 100 times. All of this happened in an instant. The trident in his hand became even more powerful. It was 100 times more powerful than the previous attack. In the next instant, Jiang Xi and the Scarlet Heaven Sword clashed with Xiang Rong's trident again. Beams of dazzling light shot into the sky, penetrating the starry sky for hundreds of millions of kilometers. There was a brief moment of silence within a radius of 1 million kilometers. Everything lost its sound, and it was as if space had been sealed. After an indeterminate period of time, boom boom boom. The collision produced a huge amount of energy that exploded in an instant. Similarly, the world within a radius of 1 million kilometers turned into nothingness as the energy tide surged. This time, even the extremely sturdy land of Vast Waves Island trembled violently and cracks appeared on it. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Amidst the surging energy tide, Jiang Xi remained unmoved. Xiang Rong was also unaffected. They are actually evenly matched. If Xiang Rong was in human form, his expression would definitely be very ugly. Because he found it hard to accept all of this. He still didn't understand what had happened. Why did the undying Daoist strength increase so much in an instant? From the level of a 4th tribulation transcender to the level of a 6th tribulation transcender. It was no wonder that he couldn't understand. In the countless races of the universe, perhaps no one had been able to cultivate 7 Daoist techniques at the same time, and all of them had reached the perfected Great Tao realm. Furthermore, he was able to fuse these 7 Daoist techniques. Now, it's my turn. Jiang Xi grinned. Before the energy tide subsided, his figure flashed. Accompanied by the wind sword, he took the initiative to attack Xiang Rong at nearly the speed of light. Humph! Xiang Rong snorted angrily and raised his trident. With a terrifying might, it stirred up heaven and earth. Rumble, and the price that both sides paid was, Jiang Xi's spiritual power was rapidly depleted. Xiang Rong's immortal body and essence spirit were also rapidly depleted. His previous attack had expended 10% of his immortal power to match Jiang Xi's sword. If he wanted to maintain this situation in the following exchanges, he had to expend 10% of his immortal power each time. After some calculations, it seemed that he only had 10 chances to use his full strength. But in reality, when more than 30% of his immortal power was expended, his strength would plummet. In other words, he only had 3 chances to use his full strength at most. Now, he was using it for the second time. I don't believe that a human Tao integration stage cultivator like you can use that sword again. Xiang Rong was full of confidence. The next moment, the two sides clashed again. The starry sky exploded. The human and demon were once again drowned by the energy tide in the void. Die! Xiang Rong's ferocious eyes were filled with coldness. But at this moment, 6,000 green lotuses of Sword Tao appeared in the energy tide before instantly disappearing. In their place was a giant green lotus sword that was 100,000 kilometers long. Green lotus. Impossible. The undying Taoist. Jiang Xi. You really are Jiang Xi. Xiang Rong's face turned pale with fright. Slash! A sonorous voice reverberated throughout heaven and earth. At the same time, the giant green lotus sword slashed down with a loud boom. Roar! Xiang Rong roared in horror. The only thing he could do now was to explode his immortal body, which had shrunk to 4,000 meters in size, and escape by detonating his immortal power. Continue fighting. He was already scared. This was not a Dao integration stage cultivator. His massive immortal body transformed into immortal power and enveloped his essence spirit, instantly covering a radius of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. However, it had yet to completely disperse. At this moment, the giant green lotus sword that was 100,000 kilometers long descended. No! Xiang Rong's pleading voice sounded. But it was cut off abruptly after uttering these two words. The giant green lotus sword swept across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, and the essence spirit wrapped in immortal power was annihilated. 6 Tribulation Transcender Xiang Rong had fallen. As for the immortal power that had lost the control of the essence spirit, it was quickly swallowed up by the heaven-connecting tower within Jiang Xi's body when it was about to return to nothingness. The sky was clear and the earth was clear. Everything was calm. Jiang Xi stood above the ruined battlefield. Although he looked extremely miserable, he was like a god fiend. His eyes burst out with golden light, intimidating this world. This was because his spiritual sense had discovered that 20 powerhouses above the 4th Tribulation Transcender realm had appeared within a radius of 10 million kilometers. More than half of the remaining 25 overlords of Surging Wave Island had been attracted by the battle just now. However, they were still hesitant to approach. Riverward's godlike performance caused the outsiders to be filled with dread. They were not sure if the undying Taoist still had the strength to fight. At this time, a voice transmission sounded in Jiang Xi's ears. Hurry up and leave. The 9 of us will block those foreign tribulation transcenders for you. Many thanks. Jiang Xi also replied with his spiritual sense. This was transmitted by one of the 5th Tribulation Transcenders of the human race. Of the 27 overlords of Surging Wave Island, 9 were humans. Boom, boom, boom. Another battle broke out within a radius of 10 million kilometers. 9 powerhouses above the 4th Tribulation Transcender realm were enough to deal with the 11 foreign Tribulation Transcenders. Whoosh, Jiang Xi did not hesitate. He quickly took out a top-grade spirit boat, turned into a stream of light and disappeared. The direction was no longer the Mountain Sea Immortal's cave, but the starry sky. 1 minute later, he had flown 10 million kilometers. That was close. Inside the flying boat, his spiritual sense, spiritual energy, and aura suddenly dropped to the lowest level, remaining at the nascent soul realm. Just now, he was barely holding on. In the battle with the 6th Tribulation Transcender Xiang Rong, he had gone all out. If that Xiang Rong had been just a little bit stronger, he would have been the one to fall. Although my spiritual energy is not as much as your immortal energy, my magical techniques and secret techniques are much stronger than yours. Jiang Xi knew where his advantage lay. Compared to the 6th Tribulation Transcender Xiang Rong, her biggest advantage was that she had a huge immortal body. What he relied on was the strength of magical techniques that surpassed most Tribulation Transcender realm powerhouses, the Dao fusion technique, and other auxiliary secret techniques, as well as the embryonic form of his own secret technique and the peak sword technique, the Cloud Bookcase 7 swords. This battle also showed that my overall strength is indeed at the level of a 6th Tribulation Transcender. Before transcending the tribulation and becoming an immortal, if I want to increase my strength, I can only perfect the embryonic form of my secret technique. At the same time, I will continue to deduce the Green Lotus Sword Dao and increase the power of the Cloud Bookcase 7 swords. The Cloud Bookcase 7 swords was closely related to the Green Lotus Sword Dao. The more transformations of the Green Lotus he comprehended, the stronger the Cloud Bookcase 7 swords would be. In addition, this battle had not only tested his strength, but he had also obtained a lot of military merits. Jiang Xi scanned his badge with his spiritual sense. The military merits displayed on it were 1,041 billion. Xiang Rong, a sixth tribulation transcender, had 1 trillion military merits. As for the remaining 41 billion, he had accumulated them from the time he entered the extraterrestrial battlefield until now. In particular, during the past 100 years, he had fought against First Tribulation Transcenders, Second Tribulation Transcenders, and Third Tribulation Transcenders on Surging Waves Island. He had also killed a lot of Tribulation Transcender powerhouses and accumulated these military merits. Next, I have to find a place to heal my injuries. Then, I'll use the insights I gained from this battle to perfect the follow-up moves of my secret technique. Jiang Ci stuffed a dozen or so healing spirit pills into his mouth to stabilize his injuries. A wisp of his spiritual sense controlled the top-grade spirit boat, which carefully shuttled through the starry sky at sublight speed. After all, in his current situation, any random Dao integration stage team from a foreign race would be able to kill him. A month later, the flying boat carefully shuttled through 700 billion kilometers and arrived at an inconspicuous starry sky island. Jiang Ci's spiritual sense quickly swept through this fragment, which had a diameter of only 1 million kilometers. He didn't find any signs of life, which was why he had chosen to descend on this starry sky island. Then, he entered the depths of the ground, restrained his aura, and entered a long-term state of healing. However, his spiritual sense had always been in a spread-out state. With the strength of his spiritual sense, only existences at least at the 7th Tribulation Transcender level could discover his location. Even if he was discovered by powerhouses at the 7th Tribulation Transcender level or above, the distance of tens of millions of kilometers was enough for him to escape. Of course, if it was a Tribulation Transcender whose spiritual sense was far stronger than his, it would be a different story. Even if the other party approached him, he wouldn't be able to discover them. What he could rest assured about was that it was very rare for a Tribulation Transcender to have a spiritual sense stronger than his. The only one Jiang Ci had encountered so far was his master, the Wine Sword Immortal. A 9 Tribulation Sword Immortal who had once seriously injured a true monarch of the monster race had a stronger spiritual sense than him. Therefore, he could peacefully heal his injuries on this inconspicuous starry sky island and perfect his secret technique at the same time. Encrypted information, undying Taoist, human race, characteristics, excels in strange fast sword techniques, cultivates the Green Lotus Sword Dao, 6,000 variations, battle record, killed a 6th Tribulation Transcender of the monster race's frenzied shark race identity, pending confirmation 1. Jiang Ci of the Purple Heaven Sect, 70% probability, 2. Lin Kong of the Sword Sect, 30% probability, level, top 3 on the assassination list, tentative, whereabouts, near the Tonggu continent of the 9th battlefield. After this battle, a piece of information about the undying Taoist spread among the monster race and ghost race. Because Jiang Ci had used the cloud bookcase 7 swords at the end, these powerhouses of the foreign races would naturally associate him with the unknown human genius of the Sword Dao. Therefore, this new piece of information was connected with the previous 2 pieces of information. At the same time, in the identity column, the probability of being recognized as Jiang Ci had risen to 70%. The reason why it wasn't completely confirmed was because Lin Kong of the Sword Sect was also a human genius of the Sword Dao at the Dao integration stage. It was just that he had cultivated for a much longer time than Jiang Ci, close to 10,000 years. Therefore, he wasn't included in the list of geniuses of the new era. Similarly, this piece of information made the eyes of the powerhouses of the foreign races in the 9th battlefield red with envy. A peerless genius of the human race who had killed a 6th Tribulation Transcender with his Dao integration stage cultivation base. If they could successfully kill him, the special rewards they would receive from their race would definitely be beyond imagination. Soon, more Tribulation Transcender powerhouses above the 7th Tribulation Transcender level rushed from the Tonggu continent to Surging Waves Island. Of course, the powerhouses of the human race also responded to this. Many immortals above the 7th Tribulation Transcender level went to Surging Waves Island. Firstly, it was to protect the geniuses of the human race. Secondly, it was to fight those powerhouses of the foreign races. Soon after, Surging Waves Island fell into a great turmoil that lasted for 30 years. Battles that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth occurred from time to time. However, in the end, no one in the three peak races found any trace of the undying Taoist. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. In the core area of the 9th battlefield, on an inconspicuous starry sky island. On this day, Jiang Xiai, who was hidden deep underground, woke up from his secluded cultivation. After 100 years of secluded cultivation, his injuries had already healed. In addition to his injuries, the biggest gain was the second style of the secret technique he had just created. Therefore, he ended his secluded cultivation. The second style of the self-created secret technique, Vajra Sword. It was a combination of the Tao of the sword and the Tao of heaven and earth. Its attack power was stronger than the sword of wind, but its speed was much slower. Deep underground, Jiang Xiai frowned slightly. Because he was not satisfied with the progress of the self-created secret technique. He had already found the inspiration and direction of the self-created secret technique. He just had to follow this path. Logically speaking, the time to create the second style should be much shorter than the first style of the Sword of Wind. Back then, he had honed himself on Surging Waves Island for 100 years before creating the Sword of Wind. And this second style also took him 100 years. It was very unreasonable. I keep feeling that something is missing. After thinking for a long time, Jiang Xiai still could not figure out what the problem was. Let's ask Master Nine Clouds. With this peak powerhouse of the human race, Jiang Xiai certainly would not go to a dead end. The problem that he could not figure out, Master Nine Clouds would definitely be able to see it at a glance. He took out his communication bead and first sent a message out, asking if Master Nine Clouds was free. In just a moment, the communication bead received a message. Jiang Xiai hurriedly connected. Then, a wisp of spiritual consciousness turned into a communication phantom and appeared in the Nine Clouds realm through the communication bead. In the sea of corpses, Master Nine Clouds' slaughter clone stared at Jiang Xiai. Disciple greets Master. Jiang Xiai bowed respectfully. What is it? Master Nine Clouds asked softly. Disciple has now created 2 secret techniques. However, I have some questions in my heart and would like Master to give me some pointers. Jiang Xiai answered truthfully. Oh? Master Nine Clouds was a little surprised. According to his original estimation, with Jiang Xi's talent, it should take him about 1,000 years to figure out the embryonic form of the self-created secret technique. But now, Jiang Xiai had entered the extraterritorial battlefield to temper himself. It had only been 200 years and he had already created 2 secret techniques. This speed was far beyond his imagination. Jiang Xiai had brought him another surprise. Chapter 539. Most importantly, Jiang Xiai had not created the prototype of his own secret technique. Instead, he had already created 2 secret techniques. This meant that Jiang Xiai had a certain idea of creating his own secret technique. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments had lived for countless years and had seen countless geniuses. Of course, there were many who were more talented than Jiang Xiai. However, there were very few who could surprise him like Jiang Xiai. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments stared at Jiang Xiai with his deep eyes for a while. 1,000 years, 200 years, perhaps, this little disciple of his still had a lot of potential to be unearthed. I can't use it here. Follow me to the sky-piercing mountain and river diagram, said Tao Lord Nine Firmaments. Jiang Xiai was slightly taken aback. To the sky-piercing mountain and river diagram? In the next moment, the space around him changed. The communication phantom formed by his wisp of spiritual consciousness was already in another place, a vast starry sky continent. Moreover, the communication phantom had also turned into a spiritual body. This was a state that would only appear when one's spiritual consciousness entered the sky-piercing mountain and river diagram. I entered the sky-piercing mountain and river diagram without using the communication pearl. Master, what kind of divine ability is this? Jiang Xi was secretly shocked. In front of him, Tao Lord Nine Firmaments did not say much. He said softly, demonstrate your two secret techniques. Yes. Jiang Xi bowed respectfully. After getting up, a long sword appeared in his hand. Sword of Gale. With that said, his mind stirred and the Tao of heaven and earth descended. The soaring sword intent on the sword suddenly had the intent of Gale. Whoosh! At the same time, his figure flashed and his body merged with the sword. The sword was like a gale and instantly disappeared. Wherever it passed, it left behind a broken starry sky river. Sword of Vajra. The sword intent changed from a swift and violent gust of wind to a firm and fierce attack of the Vajra. Although the speed was much slower, when the sword slashed out, it directly turned the starry river into nothingness. A turbulent tide of energy surged in the void. After Tao Lord Nine Firmaments saw the two secret techniques, an inexplicable look flashed in his eyes. Then, it disappeared. Whoosh! Jiang Xi returned to Tao Lord Nine Firmaments with anticipation. He bowed and said, please comment, Master. With the sword Tao as the core and the other Taoist arts as the amplification, it seems that you have indeed found the direction to create your own mystic arts. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments nodded gently. He then added, however, this secret technique of yours can only be said to be a beginner. It still needs to be perfected. If you can form your own system, your future will be promising. Jiang Xi smiled faintly. As expected of Master Nine Firmaments, he could see through his secret technique at a glance. Master, although I've found the direction, I've encountered some problems recently. He told her about the time he had taken to create the Sword of Gale and the Vajra sword. According to my assumption, the Vajra sword should take less time, Jiang Xi finally said. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments revealed a smile and explained, secret techniques are combat techniques. You created the Sword of Gale in a desperate situation. As for the Vajra sword, you comprehended it in a state of cultivation, not in a state of battle. Then, all I have to do is to fight again. Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. It's not that simple. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments shook his head gently and said, you also need a targeted environment and opponent. Jiang Xi was enlightened. The reason why he was able to create the Sword of Gale was because he was in a desperate situation and urgently needed to avoid a fatal blow. That was why he used his fastest wind elemental Taoist art. He comprehended the Vajra sword through hard work and did not have a specific environment. That was why it took him more time. To put it simply, a specific environment and opponent played a guiding role. How do I solve this problem? Jiang Xi asked hurriedly. A specific environment and opponent was not easy to find. He could not search the entire world in the Outer Realm battlefield. That would waste even more time. This starry sky continent is called the Trial Continent. I'll arrange a specific environment and opponent for you according to your Taoist art. You just have to fight them here. If you can create a corresponding mystic technique according to the remaining wood elemental, water elemental, fire elemental, and earth elemental Taoist arts, this mystic technique will be considered complete, Tao Lord Nine Firmaments said. Thank you, Master. Jiang Xi was overjoyed. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments nodded slightly. Battle. Only by constantly battling can you comprehend a suitable combat mystic technique. Next, you will follow the opponents I've arranged for you. If you can defeat 100 opponents, it will be an ordinary mystic technique. If you defeat more than 1,000 opponents, it will be a pinnacle mystic technique. For example, the Cloud Bookcase 7 Swords created by True Monarch Cloud Man is a pinnacle mystic technique that has defeated 1,800 opponents. If you defeat more than 3,000 opponents, it will be an ultimate mystic technique. There are very few humans who can create such a mystic technique. Disciple, I hope you can do better. These hopeful words filled Jiang Xi's heart with boundless pride. His eyes shone with golden light. True Monarch Cloud Man was a 5 transformations Tao immortal. Although the Cloud Bookcase 7 Swords created by him was so powerful, it was only at the intermediate level of pinnacle mystic techniques. As for experts who could create ultimate mystic techniques, there were very few of them in the entire human race. Master Nine Firmaments, as one of the top 3 supreme beings of the human race, must be one of them. I have the experience points panel. If I don't create an ultimate mystic technique in the future, I will be letting myself down. Jiang Ci was very clear about his advantages. With the experience points panel, he could save a lot of time and effort. Just like before, he had used the 360 sets of ordinary mystic techniques to build his foundation and find inspiration. In fact, the Wine Sword Immortal had bought him so many ordinary mystic techniques as a reference for him to comprehend by analogy. He did not expect Jiang Ci to fully comprehend all 360 sets of ordinary mystic techniques. That would take a lot of time. Under normal circumstances, it would take thousands or even tens of thousands of years to fully comprehend all 360 sets of ordinary mystic techniques. However, Jiang Ci had only used 100 years with the help of the experience points panel. Disciple will remember. Jiang Ci bowed respectfully. Go. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments waved his sleeves, and Jiang Ci disappeared. He looked at the empty starry sky. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through the entire clear sky mountain river diagram. In just a short 1,000 years, he went from being slightly talented to being able to kill a 6th tribulation transcender. Is he really a person with great luck? That old fogey Qingshi, did he think that he could escape from all this by hiding behind the scenes? Jiang Ci's spirit body went through a series of transformations and appeared in a vast world of flames. Volcanoes and lava converged to form a sea of flames. A giant flame spirit exuding the aura of the immortal Tao condensed from the sea of flames. A 6th tribulation transcender level flame life form can't be seen in the foreign battlefield. Jiang Ci excitedly rushed forward with his sword. A specific environment and opponent was like a custom-made one. It was absolutely extravagant. It had to be said that with Tao Lord Nine Firmaments as his master, he would be able to avoid many detours. Otherwise, if he just immersed himself in cultivation, it would probably take him thousands of years to create a complete secret technique. Boom boom boom. Jiang Ci and the giant flame spirit of the 6th tribulation transcender level fought. Moreover, there was no need to worry about life and death here. Even if he failed, he would only lose a wisp of his spiritual sense, which could be recovered in an instant. He could freely display and experiment with all kinds of secret techniques. In the following time, Jiang Ci entered the rhythm of concentrating on creating his own secret technique. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments arranged various training environments and opponents for him. Each of them was at least a 6th tribulation transcender and was extremely powerful. Moreover, these opponents had a very strong guiding ability. Jiang Ci would only enter the next environment and encounter the next opponent after defeating one opponent. It was very difficult. This was because all of his opponents were targeting his weaknesses. In order to have a better tempering effect, he did not use the Tao fusion technique and relied on his basic Tao integration cultivation. This led to sometimes having to fight an opponent hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times before he could kill them. From the 100th opponent to the 999th opponent, it took him 50 years. Then, on the 1000th opponent, it took him a full 10 years and countless deaths before he successfully passed the trial. The effect of this was very obvious. He successfully created a secret technique that combined sword and fire attribute Taoist techniques. The third style, Parting Fire Sword. It had a powerful explosive and offensive power, and was one step closer to forming a complete secret technique. At the same time, Jiang Ci was looking forward to his secret technique even more. Now, with just 3 moves, he had entered the level of a peak secret technique. He did not relax at all, just like a crazy demon. If he lost, he would fight again. If he died, he would condense his spirit body again and fight again. While fighting, he was also seriously summarizing, comprehending, and improving. In the 150th year, he created the 4th style, Withered Tree Sword. a secret technique that combined sword and wood attribute Taoist techniques. Like a withered tree in spring, it took the opponent's vitality and revived his own vitality. And this style allowed him to defeat 1,300 opponents. In the 200th year, he defeated 1,600 opponents. He successfully created the fifth style, flowing water sword. A secret technique that combined sword and water attribute Taoist techniques. In the 300th year, he defeated 2,000th opponent. He successfully created the sixth style, shield mountain sword. A secret technique that combined sword and earth attribute Taoist techniques. This was the only move that focused on defense among the 6 styles of the secret technique. In this way, among the 7 Taoist techniques that he cultivated, with sword as the core, wind attribute Taoist techniques, and 5 elements Taoist techniques as supplements, he created the 6 styles of the secret technique. According to Tao Lord 9 Firmaments, this was a success. Before entering the next trial environment, Riverward frowned as he stood in the middle of a mountain range. Because it was very strange, the secret technique that he created did not appear in the secret technique column on the EXP panel. Could it be because it doesn't have a name? This thought surfaced in Jiang Xi's mind. Then, he pondered for a moment and thought, I have fate with the mountain sea. This secret technique uses sword Tao as the core, so I'll call it the Mountain Sea Sword Sutra. After confirming the name, Jiang Xi checked the EXP panel again and was puzzled. There were no changes in the secret technique column. Perhaps I should be more specific. Gale, Vajra, Deadwood, Flowing Water, Leaving Fire, and Shield Mountain all belong to the Tao of Heaven and Earth level of the various Taoist techniques. This secret technique of mine can be upgraded to the Tao level in the future. Therefore, the combination of these 6 styles can be considered the first volume of the secret technique. Since it's a secret technique of the Tao of Heaven and Earth level, I'll call it the Mountain Sea Sword Sutra, Heaven and Earth Scroll. Boom! Just as this thought flashed through Jiang Xi's mind, a thunderclap flashed through his mind. Fuck! Did I break a taboo? Jiang Xi's breathing quickened and he could not help but feel terrified. This wisp of spiritual consciousness affected his entire essence spirit. He only felt his essence spirit tremble and could collapse at any time, as if it had encountered a great horror. Suddenly, Tao Lord 9 Firmaments, who was dressed in blood-red armor and had blood-red hair, appeared in front of Jiang Xi out of thin air. Scram! A cold glint flashed in Tao Lord 9 Firmaments' eyes. He berated Jiang Xi, but it was not directed at Jiang Xi, but at some other existence. Phew, Jiang Xi seemed to have escaped from a nightmare. He was freed from the great horror and let out a long sigh. Thank you, Master. Jiang Xi bowed gratefully. If Master 9 Firmaments had not arrived in time, his essence spirit would have collapsed. Only death would await him. What did you do? How did you anger the heavenly Tao and incur its punishment? Tao Lord 9 Firmaments asked. Heavenly Tao? Jiang Xi was shocked. Was that the heavenly Tao? I was just thinking of giving this secret technique a name. It's called the Mountain Sea Sword Scripture. Jiang Xi did not dare to continue. It's fine. I've already dismissed the heavenly Tao here. Tao Lord 9 Firmaments said. I gave the secret technique a name. It's called the Mountain Sea Sword Scripture, Heaven and Earth. Then, the situation just now happened. Jiang Xi continued. Heaven and Earth. Tao Lord 9 Firmaments shook his head and laughed. Jiang Xi blinked. This was Master 9 Firmaments' slaughter avatar. He rarely laughed. It was the first time he had seen him laugh so loudly. I have to say, the ignorant are fearless. Tao Lord 9 Firmaments looked at Jiang Xi. He explained, according to the rules of the heavenly Tao, all living beings have to respect the heavens and earth. Otherwise, they will be punished. Ordinary living beings are fine and won't be affected too much. The higher the cultivation level of the living being, the easier it is for them to be punished by the heavenly Tao if they violate this taboo. You use these two words as a name, so it's not strange that the situation just now happened. Jiang Ci suddenly understood. No wonder. However, Master Nine Firmaments did not seem to respect the heavenly Tao and directly told it to scram. It seemed that such a powerful existence was no longer afraid of the heavenly Tao. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments seemed to have seen through Jiang Ci's doubts. He chuckled, all living beings have to respect the heavens and earth, not the heavenly Tao. Jiang Ci was deep in thought. He understood something. The realm of Tao arts had the true intent of the Tao domain, the Tao of heaven and earth, the great Tao, and the heavenly Tao. The next step in his cultivation of Tao arts was to comprehend the heavenly Tao and then control it. If that was the case, there was indeed no need to respect it. Of course, stepping from the great Tao to the heavenly Tao was like crossing a heavenly chasm. It was impossible unless one was an expert of the immortal Tao. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments smiled again. Just take note of this in the future. If you really want to use the heavens and earth as your name, you can change it. For example, the two words universe will do. Jiang Ci nodded. Then I'll call it the Mountain Sea Sword Sutra's Universe Scroll. After confirming the name, he checked his experience panel again. His eyes were a little blank. Strangely, there was still no change in the mystic technique column. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments noticed Jiang Ci's abnormality and said, I've already seen the process of you creating your mystic technique. Your 6 mystic technique moves are at the level of the Tao of heaven and earth. Strictly speaking, your Mountain Sea Sword Sutra's Universe Scroll can only be considered half a pinnacle mystic technique. However, these 6 moves are faintly combined and form a system. Even if you take them out alone, they can be considered a complete set of pinnacle mystic techniques. Do you have any other questions? No, I'm just amazed that I was able to create a pinnacle mystic technique. Jiang Ci shook his head. You've done well. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments gave a rare praise and said with a smile, any pinnacle powerhouse starts from being weak and small and walks up step by step. Moreover, you defeated a total of 2,000 opponents to create these 6 moves. Even compared to the entire human race, your half of a pinnacle mystic technique has already surpassed almost all tribulation transcenders and most Tao immortals. For example, your other master, the Wine Sword Immortal, has a pinnacle mystic technique. However, his mystic technique can only defeat 1,200 opponents at most in my trial. Even so, he barely has the strength of a Tao immortal. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments finally said. Hearing this, Jiang Ci was not surprised. He already knew the strength of his master, the Wine Sword Immortal. How does it compare to the Cloud Bookcase 7 Swords? Jiang Ci asked. If we're just comparing the first half, the Cloud Bookcase 7 Swords is naturally inferior to your Mountain Sea Sword scripture. However, in terms of completeness, the Cloud Bookcase 7 Swords is better. After all, after mastering this mystic technique, one can become a Tao Lord. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments smiled. Jiang Ci nodded. He understood what was going on. From the cultivation conditions of the Cloud Bookcase 7 Swords, it could be seen that this pinnacle mystic technique covered the Tao of the sword and sword intent. It was equivalent to the Tao of the heavens and earth and the great Tao. As for his Mountain Sea Sword scripture, the Cosmos Scroll, it only contained the Tao of the heavens and earth. Since you've already mastered the mystic technique, the trial here will not be of much help to you for the time being. Continue fighting in the foreign battlefield. Every battle will make this half of the mystic technique more complete. At the same time, you'll be able to comprehend life and death through life and death battles. Only then will you be able to find the path to the second half of the mystic technique. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments said with a serious expression. Yes. Jiang Ci bowed. A wisp of spiritual sense took the form of a spiritual body and disappeared into the sky-piercing mountain river painting. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments' eyes moved like a river of stars. It was as if he could see Jiang Ci in the foreign battlefield. Although he had praised Jiang Ci just now, he had only praised half of it. Under normal circumstances, it would take 100,000 years to create a peak mystic technique. Even 1,000,000 years would be considered a small amount. Experts below the true monarch realm, even ninth tribulation transcenders, only had 100,000 years of lifespan. With such a limited lifespan, there were naturally very few people who could create a peak mystic technique. Therefore, only true monarchs with endless lifespan had the qualifications to create peak mystic techniques. Of course, it was only the qualifications. Without inspiration, it was useless no matter how long one's lifespan was. This little guy. Even if I arranged a specific environment and opponent for him, saving him thousands of times more time, he would still need at least 2,000 years of lifespan, but it should take at least 1 or 2,000 years for it to be reasonable, but he only used 300 years. This was another surprise. Tao Lord Nine Firmament's eyes were filled with anticipation. In the foreign battlefield, in the core area of the ninth battlefield, near the Tonggu continent, there was an inconspicuous small starry sky island. Riverward had been hiding in the depths of the earth for 400 years. He opened his eyes, which were full of doubts. I still feel that something is wrong. Master Nine Firmament said that my mystic technique has been completed. Even if it's only half of a peak mystic technique, it can be considered a complete one. But why is the Mountain Sea Sword manual not recorded in the experience points panel? Could it be that this half of a peak mystic technique is still missing something? Is there no system of its own? Master Nine Firmaments just said that the 6 moves faintly fit together, it's only faintly fit. Perhaps it's not completely fit. Deep underground, Jiang Xi's eyes flashed with a divine light. He suddenly broke through the nearly 10,000 kilometers underground and arrived in the starry sky. I'll find an opponent to test it out. Jiang Xi's gaze turned to the vast Tonggu continent. That inexplicable aura had been lingering in the starry sky. It's time to go to the Tonggu continent. He took out a top-grade spirit boat and shuttled in the direction of the Tonggu continent. In the Heavenly Mountain River diagram, Master Nine Firmaments had arranged a trial for him, so he didn't have to worry about life and death. It was very difficult for him to feel any real pressure in such a battle. Because there was no sense of urgency between life and death. As for the previous Surging Waves Island, he didn't care about it anymore. Even the so-called invincible 6th Tribulation Transcender on the Surging Waves Island was killed by him. There was no challenge for him to go there again. The Tonggu continent is full of powerhouses. Those who dare to go there are basically at least 3rd Tribulation Transcender. On the Surging Waves Island, 6th Tribulation Transcenders can be considered invincible. But in the Tonggu continent, they can often be encountered. Only 7th Tribulation Transcenders and above dare to go there alone. According to the information Jiang Xi collected on the Surging Waves Island, there were more than 100,000 7th Tribulation Transcenders on the Tonggu continent. As for the remaining 8th Tribulation Transcenders, there were more than 10,000. Although there weren't many 9th Tribulation Transcenders, that was only relative to the number of 10,000. Adding all the races together, there were more than 1,000 known 9th Tribulation Transcenders. It could be said that in the entire 9th battlefield, 90% of the powerhouses above 7th Tribulation Transcender were gathered on the Tonggu continent. Although the largest diameter of this starry sky continent is 20,000 light-years, the possibility of encountering a 9th Tribulation Transcender is very small. Moreover, my strength has increased, but I still have to be very careful. Jiang Xi was very clear that in his current situation, once his true identity was exposed, he would attract countless powerhouses from other races. Any random 9th Tribulation Transcender could put him in a real life and death crisis. The top-grade spirit boat carefully shuttled through the starry sky. According to the starry sky map, the distance from this unremarkable starry sky island to the Tonggu continent was nearly 1 light-year. If he flew at sublight speed, it would take him about a year. On the following journey, he would occasionally encounter some small teams of other races. If he was in a good mood, he would go over and kill them, reaping a wave of experience and military merits. If he was in a bad mood, he would rely on the strength of his spiritual sense, which was comparable to that of a 9th Tribulation Transcender, to avoid them. According to this rhythm, the journey was quite smooth. As time passed, he got closer and closer to the Tonggu continent. The strength of the small teams and tribulation transcender powerhouses he encountered also gradually increased. At the same time, the inexplicable aura he felt was getting stronger and stronger. A year later, Jiang Xi finally arrived in front of the Tonggu continent. He stood on the deck of the flying boat, and with another jump, he entered the sky above the Tonggu continent. The boundless ancient aura mixed with the inexplicable aura suddenly shook his spirit, and he felt as if all the cells in his body were boiling. The real battle has finally come. First launched, then changed. Chapter 540. In the starry sky millions of kilometers above the Tonggu continent, an inconspicuous top-grade spirit boat was flying at sublight speed. Inside the flying boat, Jiang Xi still maintained the appearance of the mountain sea immortal. While controlling the flying boat, he used his spiritual sense to explore the situation within a radius of 10 million kilometers, looking for a suitable target. 8 million kilometers away, there is a ghost army, 2 fourth tribulation transcenders, and more than 10,000 ghost cultivators. Jiang Xi did not stop and continued to search. After a while, after flying for 100 million kilometers, his spiritual sense found something else. A tribulation transcenders team of the origin dragon race, 1/4 tribulation transcender, and more than 100 Dao integration experts. The origin dragon race belonged to the monster race camp, but it was not a monster race. It was a small top race. However, Jiang Xi still did not stop. These were not his targets. After flying for another 20 minutes and crossing 200 million kilometers, he found something else. A tribulation transcenders team of the monster race, and the leader of the team is a 4th tribulation transcender. Half an hour later, I finally encountered a team with a 5th tribulation transcender leader, but this is from the human camp. Jiang Xi shook his head gently. It had been 3 days since he officially stepped into the Tonggu continent. In the past 3 days, he found hundreds of teams, including teams of tribulation transcenders and cultivators. Whether these teams were from the human race or other races. Without exception, their leaders were at least 4th tribulation transcenders, and a small number were 5th tribulation transcenders. This showed that in the Tonggu continent, if a team did not have a 4th tribulation transcender or above, they would not be able to survive. 4th tribulation transcender powerhouses can already dominate vast wave island, but they are extremely common in the Tonggu continent. Unfortunately, there are still too few powerhouses above the 7th tribulation transcender level. In the entire Tonggu continent, there are more than 100,000 7th tribulation transcenders, more than 10,000 8th tribulation transcenders, and only 1,000 9th tribulation transcenders. Moreover, many powerhouses above the 7th tribulation transcender level are fixed in one area. In such a vast continent, it's quite difficult to meet one. Thinking of this, Jiang Xi sighed softly. As long as there is a 6th tribulation transcender, I can have a good fight. So far, he had not even met a 6th tribulation transcender. His luck was a bit bad. In the starry sky about 30 million kilometers away from Jiang Xi, a bird-shaped supreme-grade spirit vessel was shuttling at a high speed. The interior of this flying boat was extremely luxurious. Inside the magnificent hull, a 6th tribulation transcender from the monster race's Scarlet Loach clan was sitting on a throne, exuding a tyrannical aura. The crimson locusts looked like apes, but they had white heads and red feet. They belonged to the top bloodline of the demon clan, and their ancient ancestor was the legendary ferocious beast Zhuyan. This 6th tribulation transcender Scarlet Loach was 100 meters tall, and there were 3 slightly smaller 5th tribulation transcender Scarlet Loaches beside him. A 6th tribulation transcender, Scarlet Yen, couldn't help but angrily say, "Despicable humans, calling for reinforcements when you can't beat them. Too cunning." Not long ago, they had hunted down a human tribulation transcender squad. Just as they were about to succeed, 3 other human tribulation transcender squads came one after another. Instead, they became the targets of the hunt. In the end, they suffered a great loss and could only flee. One of the fifth tribulation transcender, Qi Yan, sighed and said, "There's nothing we can do about it. The human race's communication methods are far superior to ours, and they can quickly send reinforcements. On the other hand, our monster race," Qi Yan, a sixth tribulation transcender, shook his head, and said, "They were only able to occupy the best territory in the universe by relying on the heavenly eye. Otherwise, how could such a weak body of the human race resist the conquest of our monster race?" Another fifth tribulation transcender, Qi Yan, echoed, "Your Excellency is right. Originally, our monster race also occupied the best territory in the universe." The sixth tribulation transcender Qi Yan coldly said, "Sooner or later, our monster race will return to the core of the universe and take back our ancestral land. A good territory could nurture even more talented life forms. This way, the race would become stronger and stronger." The extraterritorial battlefield was located between the three pinnacle races. The human race, the demon race, and the ghost race had fought against each other for countless epochs in the extraterritorial battlefield. Originally, the three pinnacle races were evenly matched, each occupying a territory in the core area of the universe. Ever since the Heavenly Eye appeared, the Yao and Ghost clans had been at a disadvantage. As a result, the Yao and Ghost clans formed an alliance to deal with the human race together. I hope we'll still be alive at that time. Then we'll have to cultivate to the true monarch realm. Our Qi Yan race has the bloodline of the ancient ferocious beast Qi Yan, and our talent is extraordinary. The probability of us becoming a true monarch is still very high." The fifth tribulation transcender Qi Yan laughed and discussed. On the throne, the 100-meter-tall sixth tribulation transcender Qi Yan was somewhat puzzled. The fifth tribulation transcender Qi Yan stopped discussing and asked, "Your Excellency, what happened?" The sixth tribulation transcender Qi Yan said with a strange expression, "My spiritual sense discovered a top-grade spirit boat of the human race more than 6 million kilometers away." Human race? I've been suppressing a fire in my heart. Let's destroy them. A fifth tribulation transcender Qi Yan laughed. The sixth tribulation transcender Qi Yan shook his head and said, "I haven't finished yet. There's only one human Dao integration stage expert in that top-grade spirit boat." A human Dao integration stage expert? The fifth tribulation transcender Qi Yan were shocked. Soon, their spiritual senses also discovered it, and their faces were filled with disbelief. How is that possible? I've never seen a lone cultivator at the Dao integration stage. The Tonggu continent is extremely dangerous. No matter which race's Dao integration stage cultivators come to the Tonggu continent with a team of tribulation transcenders or a cultivator army. If he dares to come to the Tonggu continent alone, isn't he courting death? The sixth tribulation transcender Qi Yan gently shook his head and said with a serious expression, "I suddenly thought of someone. Do you still remember? 400 years ago, our race issued a hunting mission. The target was a human Dao integration stage expert called the Undying Daoist. That Undying Daoist was suspected to be the genius of the human race, Jiang Ci." The fifth tribulation transcender Qi Yan were pleasantly surprised. It's that Undying Daoist from the Surging Waves Island? 400 years ago, many seventh tribulation transcenders of the Tonggu continent rushed to the Surging Waves Island, where a great battle broke out. It's said that 1% of the entire Surging Waves Island was destroyed, but in the end, that Undying Daoist was not found. I wonder if the one in front of us is that Undying Daoist? The possibility is very high. The sixth tribulation transcender Qi Yan smiled. Regardless, let's kill him first. If that was the case, it would be an extremely generous reward. In the monster camp of the 9th battlefield of the foreign battlefield, there was a mission to kill the Undying Daoist. The reward for completing the mission was equivalent to killing a 9th tribulation transcender. If that wasn't the case, it wouldn't be a big deal. At most, they would just casually kill a human Dao integration stage expert who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As for his strength, because of the previous mission information, they all knew that the Undying Daoist's actual combat strength was at the level of a 6th tribulation transcender. Only 400 years had passed, so the strength of this undying Taoist should not have changed much. Their team had 1/6 Tribulation Transcender and 3/5 Tribulation Transcenders. Moreover, with the bloodline of the murderer, Zhu Yan, their combat strength was 20% or 30% higher than powerhouses of the same level. Even if a 7th Tribulation Transcender came, they would still dare to fight. Immediately after, they drove the bird-shaped supreme-grade spirit boat and quickly shuttled toward Jiang Xi's flying boat at sublight speed. This human rookie is still leisurely drinking wine. A 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan laughed. With their spiritual awareness, they got a thorough understanding of the situation of the human flying boat. He really doesn't know what's good for him. Presumably, with the strength of his spiritual sense, he won't be able to discover us even if we are only 1,000,000 kilometers away from him. Soon, the distance between the two flying boats was only 1,000,000 kilometers. They found that the human Dao integration stage expert was still leisurely drinking wine without any movement. I increasingly feel that he's just an ordinary human Dao integration stage expert. A 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan shook his head. A 6th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan also nodded. A peerless genius of the human race, even if he's at the Dao integration stage, can use all kinds of soul secret techniques to probe 1,000,000 kilometers away with his spiritual sense. He still hasn't discovered us. I'm afraid he's really just an ordinary Dao integration stage expert. Another 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan coldly said, "Let me make a move. I'll destroy that flying boat with one move. Don't be careless. Let's wait and see." As the battle approached, the 6th Tribulation Transcender Scarlet Yen remained calm amidst the violence, 1,000,000 kilometers away, inside the supreme-grade spirit boat. Jiang Xi was indeed drinking wine. After being together with Liquor Sword Immortal for a long time, he had also acquired the habit of drinking. When he had nothing to do, he would take a few sips to relieve his mood. His expression seemed relaxed, but his spiritual sense was constantly in a spread-out state. In fact, he had already discovered the Tribulation Transcender squad of the Qi Yan clan by relying on his spiritual senses' range of 10,000,000 kilometers. Every move of the 4 Qi Yans was under the surveillance of his spiritual sense. Not knowing what's good for him. However, it'll be clear in a while who's the one who doesn't know what's good for him. It wasn't easy to find a suitable target, so he naturally wouldn't let it go. There were only 1,000,000 kilometers between the two sides, and they would meet in at most 3 seconds. This seemed short, but it was actually very long. For immortal Dao powerhouses, even 1 second was enough to do a lot of things. 2 seconds passed, there were only 200,000 kilometers between the two sides, and they were about to meet in the sky 1,000,000 kilometers above the Tunga continent. The cold 5th Tribulation Transcender, Scarlet Yen, left the flying ship and stood in the starry sky with its huge white head and red feet. Then, he opened his huge mouth and opened his arms, condensing a ball of immortal power with a terrifying aura. Go! His figure flashed twice, and he instantly arrived 200,000 kilometers away, smashing the ball of immortal power with a whistling sound. Boom! Jiang Xi's top-grade spirit boat was directly blown to pieces, and the turbulent energy surged in the starry sky. The cold 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan lightly snorted, can't even withstand a single blow. However, in the next moment, the expression on his face, which was very similar to a human's, changed. The turbulent energy of the explosion gradually subsided, and a figure wearing dark red battle armor was quietly standing in the void, unharmed. Not dead? The cold 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan's eyes flashed fiercely. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 6th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan and the other 2 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yans also flew over. They had all seen the scene of the explosion just now. One of the 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan said, "To be able to remain unharmed under the attack of a 5th Tribulation Transcender, it seems that you should be that Taoist undying." The other 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan also laughed, "This is great luck. The reward for killing him is equivalent to killing a 9th Tribulation Transcender." The 6th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yan said in a deep voice, "Let's end this quickly, don't talk nonsense with him." One couldn't be careless in any battle. This was common knowledge that had been learned for tens of thousands of years in the Tonggu continent. The 3/5 tribulation transcender Qi-Yans also didn't underestimate the human in front of them. The three of them flashed and surrounded Jiang Xi's path of retreat. "You're right, encountering me is indeed great luck. However, this is my luck. After killing you, I should get a lot of military merits." Jiang Xi smiled. "Arrogant." The four Qi-Yans sneered. "Go." The Qi-Yan race wasn't known for their huge bodies, so their immortal bodies weren't too big. The four Qi-Yans all had immortal bodies of around 100 meters. However, they were more proficient in fire-type and metal-type Daoist techniques. With the help of their bloodline power, they could perform joint attacks. This was why they had the confidence to fight against a seventh tribulation transcender. They each held a long staff magical treasure and rushed out with majestic immortal power and fire-type and metal-type Daoist techniques. As soon as they made their move, they launched a joint attack. Their immortal power, Daoist techniques, and other attacks condensed into a 10,000-kilometer tall Qi-Yan energy body in an instant. It was as if the ancient ferocious beast Qi-Yan had been reborn. This huge energy body Qi-Yan also held a 10,000-kilometer long staff. Then, it roared and attacked Jiang Xi. The whole space began to tremble and shatter. This was a power close to that of a seventh tribulation transcender. At this critical moment, this thought flashed through Jiang Xi's mind. "I wonder if I can find the flaws of the Mountain and Sea Sword Sutra's Cosmos Scroll through this battle." With the goal of finding the problem and testing his strength, he only used the Mountain and Sea Sword Sutra. He didn't use the Dao fusion technique that could increase the amplitude of his spiritual energy. He waved the Scarlet Heaven sword in his hand, and the 6 styles of the Cosmos Scroll appeared at the same time. Then, 6 100-meter-long sword lights circled around his body. They corresponded to the Sword of Wind and the 5 techniques of the 5 elements. The Sword of Wind circled above him, and the techniques of the 5 elements circled around him. His body was like an immortal sword that wanted to pierce through the firmament. His body was like a sword. This was what Dao Monarch 9 Firmaments had said. The 6 styles faintly combined and formed a system of their own. Jiang Xi had relied on the 6 styles of the Cosmos Scroll to defeat his 2000th opponent in the trial. The process of casting these techniques only took an instant. The attacks of the two sides collided. The huge energy body Qi-Yan was about to hit Jiang Xi with its staff. If this staff with power close to that of a 7th tribulation transcender hit Jiang Xi, even if his body was close to that of a low-grade immortal treasure, it would still disintegrate. Mountain Shield. Jiang Xi's mind moved. A 100-meter-long sword light that represented the Mountain Shield instantly merged with the Scarlet Heaven sword in his body. The sword light turned into tens of thousands of meters long, like a mountain and a shield. Boom! The starry river shattered, and the sound of thunder echoed for millions of miles. The sword of the Mountain Shield shattered, and the staff was blocked as well. It was barely blocked. Jiang Xi stood in the broken space turbulence, and 6 huge sword lights circled around him, exuding a different kind of aura. A 5th tribulation transcender, Qi-Yan, excitedly said, "This is the strength of a 6th tribulation transcender. He must be the Daoist Undying." Another 5th tribulation transcender, Qi-Yan, was also excited. "Sir, kill him with the body of Qi-Yan." The 6th tribulation transcender, Qi-Yan, laughed. The 4 of them controlled the body of Qi-Yan with him as the core. It was the energy body Qi-Yan that was tens of thousands of kilometers tall. Kill! The staff in the hands of the body of Qi-Yan turned into a dragon that was tens of thousands of kilometers long. It danced in the starry sky, stirring up heaven and earth. Then, with endless power, it smashed toward Jiang Xi. Vajra! Jiang Xi was not afraid at all. He merged with the Vajra sword, and golden light whistled as he took the initiative to meet the attack. He wanted to use this kind of battle to find the problem with the Cosmos Scroll, or rather, the flaw of Boom. The Vajra sword collided with the 10,000-kilometer-long staff of the body of Qi Yan. An energy that was extremely close to that of a seventh tribulation transcender erupted, covering millions of kilometers. Jiang Xi was directly sent flying. Cracks finally appeared on his body, but they were not as scary as before. A fifth tribulation transcender, Qi Yan, laughed. Haha, his strength is far inferior to the body of Qi Yan. Kill him. The huge body of Qi Yan once again waved the staff, creating a ravine between heaven and earth as it smashed toward Jiang Xi. The terrifying power squeezed the sky, forcing Jiang Xi to face the enemy head-on. This was the result that Jiang Xi hoped for. Only with pressure could he find the problem. He thought of something. Flowing water. Flowing water sword. Then, he was sent flying again. At the same time, the staff chased after him and smashed down. Dead wood. He changed his sword technique and continued to resist the staff. Next, he and the body of Qi Yan that was tens of thousands of kilometers tall continued to crazily collide and fight in the starry sky. Wind sword, diamond sword, deadwood sword, flowing water sword, departing fire sword, and shield mountain sword. The 6 styles of the universe were used one after another. At the same time, more and more cracks appeared on his body. His body could collapse at any time, and the situation seemed to be in danger. He's still not dead. Even if this human Dao integration stage expert isn't Jiang Xi, he's definitely one of the top 3 peerless geniuses of the human race. A 6th tribulation transcender, Qi Yan, exuded a fierce light. This is good. No matter what his identity is, as long as we kill him, we can obtain a great reward equivalent to killing a 9th tribulation transcender. The 3 5th tribulation transcender Qi Yan were pleasantly surprised. 9th tribulation transcenders were existences that stood at the peak of the Tonggu continent. Even if there were 10,000 of them, they could not kill a 9th tribulation transcender. He's about to die, again. A 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yan could no longer keep calm, and his tyrannical aura continued to rise. The 4 of them joined forces and controlled the body of Qi Yan to attack again. A staff shadow swept out, and the starry sky within tens of thousands of kilometers exploded. Jiang Xi took a deep breath, and his expression was extremely solemn. He had reached his limit and knew where the limit of the 6 styles of the universe was. However, he had not found the problem and the flaw. I'll block this last attack. If I still can't find it, I can only kill them with all my strength and then find the next target. Jiang Xi made a decision in his heart. He could not put himself to death just to find the flaw of the secret technique. Whoosh, the staff came crashing down with boundless power. Jiang Xi used the 6 styles of the universe again, either dodging, colliding, or defending. Boom. Boom. His whole body was constantly sent flying, and more cracks appeared on his body. Even if his body was close to a low-grade immortal treasure, it was about to collapse. Under such circumstances, the 6 styles of the universe became faster and faster. Suddenly, Jiang Xi had a flash of inspiration. He found it. There was a slight delay in the transformation of the 6 styles of the universe. Forming a system. Yes, the 5 styles of the 5 elements system seem to be faintly combined, but they have not really integrated into the 6 styles of the universe. Jiang Xi finally found the problem. After he used the 6 styles of the universe, his body was like a sword, and the 5 styles of the 5 elements system surrounded him. Wind-type Dao arts were ethereal to begin with. As the saying goes, ethereal follows the wind. The Gale sword was very natural and perfectly fused with the 6 stances of the universe. However, the 5 styles of the 5 elements system were forcibly mixed together by the sword intent. It seemed to be integrated, but in fact, it was drifting outside. Otherwise, the transformation of the 6 styles of the universe would be extremely smooth, and there would not be any delay. Boom! When this thought flashed through Jiang Xi's mind, he was sent flying 100,000 kilometers again. Crack, 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 his body was about to collapse. "Ha, die for me!" Sixth Tribulation Transcender Qi Yen shouted. The staff that could destroy heaven and earth swept out again. But at this moment, Jiang Xi stopped in his tracks. Dao Fusion Technique. He directly used the 7 Paths Fusion Technique, and his spiritual energy amplitude increased by 7 times. From 20,000 times, it increased to 140,000 times. Immediately afterward, Jiang Xi's mind moved again. Gale. The sword light that represented the Gale sword suddenly merged with his body and Scarlet Heaven sword. This time, his speed increased significantly. The previous time he flickered, it was only 100,000 kilometers. But this time, it was close to the speed of light, more than 200,000 kilometers. Whoosh, he disappeared from where he stood, dodging the attack. In the next moment, he penetrated the body of Qi Yen and appeared next to a 5th Tribulation Transcender. Vajra. Slash. The sword light of the Vajra sword merged with the body of the sword, and the power of his sword increased by thousands of times. The sword fell. What? That 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yen was excited and looking forward to killing the enemy, and did not have time to react. He found that his body began to move away from his sight, and his primordial spirit began to dissipate. Voila, the body of Qi Yen that was tens of thousands of kilometers tall also dissipated. The joint attack was broken. In this part of the starry sky, there were only 3 Qi Yens left. So fast. The expression of the 6th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yen changed greatly. He was the only one who could keep up with Jiang Xi's speed. Just a little meant that he could not keep up. Now, this 6th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yen was also stunned. The situation had changed, and no one knew what had happened. How did the strength of this human Dao integration suddenly increase by 100 times? How can he be so powerful? 7th Tribulation Transcender, no, 8th Tribulation Transcender. He must be an 8th Tribulation Transcender. Run, run, run. He's a lone cultivator in disguise, definitely not a Dao integration stage undying Daoist. The remaining 2 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yans were very excited just now, but at this time, they were really scared and turned around to escape. However, 2 more sword lights passed by at nearly the speed of light, shattering the starry sky. The 2 5th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yans did not even escape 100,000 kilometers before their primordial spirits were destroyed by the sword lights. As for the 6th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yen, he had already escaped. He did not have any thoughts of fighting again. Damn it! He was clearly about to die just now. He played us like this. Who the hell is he? If he's an 8th Tribulation Transcender, his aura will definitely not be able to hide from me. Unless he's a 9th Tribulation Transcender, then he can disguise himself so that even I can't detect him. But 9th Tribulation Transcenders are all lofty existences in the Tonggu continent. They are all looking for those hidden opportunities, and will not do such a boring thing. Perhaps he really is the undying Daoist. Did he just make a breakthrough? The 6th Tribulation Transcender Qi Yen was frightened and anxious. Suddenly, he thought of a key piece of information. Yes! His extremely fast sword is very similar to the strange fast sword of the undying Daoist mentioned in the intelligence. Then, he smiled bitterly. So what if he confirmed that this person was the undying Daoist? His spiritual sense discovered that the undying Daoist was only 500,000 kilometers away from him, and the distance between the two sides was rapidly shrinking. Request for help. I can only ask for help. Hopefully, there are 7th Tribulation Transcenders or 8th Tribulation Transcenders of the monster camp nearby. He quickly sent out a message through the secret communication array in his storage magical treasure. I found a human Dao integration stage expert with the battle prowess of an 8th Tribulation Transcender. It's the undying Daoist from the Surging Waves Island. He killed 3 of my 5th Tribulation Transcender subordinates with 3 sword strikes. My position is, if there is anyone nearby, please send help quickly. This message for help spread within a range of 10 billion light-years, and only the experts of the monster camp could receive it. But if they wanted to save him, not only did they have to be at least a 7th tribulation transcender, but they also had to be within a range of hundreds of millions of kilometers. Otherwise, they would not be able to arrive in time. Run! As long as I can wait for reinforcements to arrive, I can win. Every time the 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen flashed, he would travel more than 100,000 kilometers. He did not dare to change to a flying boat, because the time it took to change was enough for the human Dao integration stage experts behind him to catch up. The distance between the two sides was still 200,000 kilometers. 6 huge sword lights circled around Jiang Xi. He had already found the flaw of the Mountain Sea Sword Sutra's Cosmos Scroll. This 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen will definitely ask for help from the monster camp. If there is a stronger monster nearby, I will have no choice but to escape. I have to deal with him as soon as possible. With this thought in mind, he merged his body with his sword, and his sword moved like a gust of wind. His figure constantly shuttled through the void, approaching the 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen at a speed close to the speed of light. 2 seconds later, he finally caught up. At this time, the distance between the two sides was only 10,000 kilometers, and he would arrive in an instant. Die! The 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen turned around and gathered his strength for an attack. The long staff in his hand expanded by 10,000 times, and he swung it toward Jiang Xi. Immortal power, which carried flames and golden light, emitted a terrifying aura that spread to a radius of 1 million kilometers. Your strongest attack. Jiang Xi chuckled. Departing fire. He directly used the departing fire sword, which was also his strongest attack. At the same time, with the support of the Dao fusion technique, the power of this sword was also thousands of times stronger than before. A blazing heat wave suddenly swept out, and the entire starry sky seemed to be burning. A sword light that was 100,000 kilometers long collided with the staff shadow of the 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen. Boom, boom, boom. The staff shadow exploded and turned into nothingness. However, the departing fire sword was still firm, and it cut through the starry sky, continuing to slash toward the 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen. Human. The 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen roared, full of despair. He couldn't dodge this attack, let alone block it. Explode, explode, explode. Immortal power quickly circulated in his 100-meter-tall immortal body, and his immortal body also began to expand. He wanted to self-destruct and die together with his opponent. Too late, too slow. Jiang Xi shook his head. With a thought, the departing fire sword that was 100,000 kilometers long slashed down. Boom! The 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen, who had expanded to a height of 10,000 meters, was directly killed by this huge sword. His primordial spirit was destroyed, and his immortal body scattered. Whoosh! Jiang Xi's figure flashed, and he cleaned up the battlefield. After the death of a 6th tribulation transcender and 3 5th tribulation transcender, the immortal power of the dead spread throughout the starry sky. Just as it was about to return to nothingness, it was quickly swallowed by the heaven-connecting tower inside Jiang Xi's body. Retreat! After that, Jiang Xi didn't stay any longer. He flipped his hand, took out a new supreme-grade spirit boat, and disappeared. Encrypted information, human race's undying Daoist characteristics, sword user battle record, killed a 6th tribulation transcender and 3 5th tribulation transcender of the Qi Yen race. Combat strength, 8th tribulation transcender, to be confirmed, identity, to be confirmed 1. Primordial chaos sect's venerable Baogua, 70% chance, 2. Jiang Xi of the Purple Heaven sect, 20% chance, 3. Len Kong of the Sword sect, 10% chance, rank, top 10 of the assassination list, tentative, whereabouts, Tonggu continent of the 9th battlefield. That 6th tribulation transcender Qi Yen had sent a request for help before his death. Not long after his death, such information appeared in the monster camp of the 9th battlefield of the foreign battlefield. From the content of the information, the possibility of being recognized as Jiang Ci had decreased to 20%. The result of this battle indicated that this undying Taoist had the combat strength of an 8th Tribulation Transcender. For Tribulation Transcender powerhouses, the 7th Tribulation was a watershed. After the 8th Tribulation and 9th Tribulation, each Tribulation would greatly increase one's strength. Correspondingly, the difficulty of cultivating and increasing one's strength was also very high. As difficult as ascending to the heavens was used to describe the 7th Tribulation, 8th Tribulation, and 9th Tribulation. For example, the difficulty of cultivating from the 6th Tribulation to the 7th Tribulation was no less than that of cultivating from the 1st Tribulation Transcender to the 6th Tribulation Transcender. Similarly, the difficulty of cultivating from the 7th Tribulation to the 8th Tribulation was also far greater than that of cultivating from the 1st Tribulation Transcender to the 7th Tribulation Transcender. For countless eras, countless geniuses had appeared in the 3 peak races. However, none of them had ever seen a Tao integration stage genius who could compare to an 8th Tribulation Transcender after cultivating for just over 1,000 years. 8 million years ago, the human race's sword sect had a genius Lu Yun who had the opportunity to reach this step. However, he was later assassinated by the monster race and ghost race in a secret realm of the human race. On the other hand, River Word was a genius who had only cultivated for a little over 1,000 years. It was simply impossible for him to achieve this in just a little over 1,000 years. Therefore, the higher-ups of the monster camp of the 9th battlefield reduced the possibility of Jiang Ci to 20%. Of course, there was another reason. The monster race had received information that the peerless genius of the human race's primordial chaos sect, Venerable Baogua, was also training in the 9th battlefield. This Venerable Baogua had cultivated for nearly 10,000 years. As one of the top 10 peerless geniuses of this era, it was not strange for him to be comparable to an 8th Tribulation Transcender with his Tao integration stage cultivation. The top 10 peerless geniuses of each era of the 3 peak races could basically reach this step after cultivating for nearly 10,000 years. Therefore, in this information, Venerable Baogua became the most suspicious person. In short, after this battle, the higher-ups of the monster camp of the 9th battlefield once again increased the reward for killing the undying Taoist. Previously, it was equivalent to 1 9th Tribulation Transcender. Now, it was equivalent to 10. For a time, the Tribulation Transcender powerhouses of the monster camp of the Tonggu continent once again heard the news. Even some 8th Tribulation Transcenders were moved. They left their originally fixed cultivation areas and mobilized their subordinates to search for the undying Taoist. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.